No, sorry, can I get down there?
Yeah.
We have 10,000 puffins on the island, and if you were here yesterday, you'd just be sick of looking at them. They're everywhere. They're running on the steps, and they're very cute. If you haven't seen one, there's a little black and white fellow with the orange beak, kind of colour beak. They live in those burrows. They look like rabbit holes. That's where the puffins nest under the ground. They come back in about April, start of April, and they meet up with their partner from the year before, and they mate. They dig a tunnel. If the tunnel's still there, they'll use that one. They go back to the same hole. The female lays one egg inside under the ground, which takes about 6 weeks for them to incubate until it hatches into a little grey ball of fluff about this big with a black beak. And then the adults come back with the fish in their beaks. You may have seen some of the adults flying with little fish in their mouths. They fly in, run up the tunnel and drop this on the floor, and they shoot off for another batch. And the chick will feed itself with fresh fish that it just eats. It just picks up off the floor. maybe 6 weeks then later, it's about the size of the adult. It's kind of grey, black and white with a black beak, and it makes its way then to the sea. It will never see its parents probably again, or never see the skelligs again. It flutters down, gets on the water, and he can't fly yet properly, and they develop the flight muscles as they are living on their own on the ocean. But they fly underwater very well. They fly like penguins underwater. Their wings are very bad, not very aerodynamic, but they're hydrophiles under the water. They really, really do well underwater. And they can go down about 150 feet to fish. So that's where they live during the winter. They'll sleep floating on the water. Anywhere between here, North Africa, right across to the eastern seaboard of Canada and the States, and Iceland and places like that. They'll just be nomadic for a few years, and then they'll grow the coloured beak. They'll come back to land, and they'll meet a partner, and they'll stay together for up to 25 years. They're like quite long-lived birds, and they're quite faithful, But in August, then, when the nesting season's finished, the adults leave the island. All of a sudden, they're gone, and they separate. They go their different ways. So that's the secret to success. March. I don't know how you said the puffin, but I'm sure they know what they mean. On the small skelligs, then you've got the gannets. You've seen the gannets. You may have come close to them. Good smell today, I'd say. Yeah, nice fermenting smell. There's 22,000 pairs of them over there. There's quite a number of them over, and they've got their chicks at the moment. So pretty fantastic. And if you see a feeding frenzy, it's a marvel to see if you can get close to them. The dolphins sometimes bring up the shoulder mackerels to the top. The next thing, you see several thousand of the gannets doing this kind of spiral, cylindrical formation, and just dive bombing from above, and it's quite spectacular to see it. So, your eyes open.
Keep your legs straight.
Have a look at it. How many he's got in his book. Make sure we're not taking them all away. You got a picture of it? I got one, and I got the other one was the back. I got the head one. Wow. Look at those birdies, Mike. It's paradise.
Enjoyable would be nice, but at least pleasant. It is so nice to have you all gathered. It has been a very interesting month, just so you know. Now, for anybody who doesn't know me, just in case, I'm Asha Dean, speaker one. So, and this is Asan, speaker two, but I think most people here know us. Anyway, volume up. Okay. Somebody's working on it. Excuse me while I get rid of my cough drop. Okay, that's better. All right. Now I'm just a little bit out of breath from walking fast. So this is going to be a very interesting workshop. It is, as you can tell by the itinerary, a moving workshop where we're doing a lot of moving, going to a lot of sites. When the Beloveds told us quite a while back that we were supposed to come to Ireland, they didn't say a word about why, other than the fact that we would be doing Sliders 6 here. But that was it. And they're still at that, except for the last month. Actually, ever since we did I did the radio interview with Sarah Simmons, I've been doing all-nighters ever since on information that's going into two places. The two places it's going to go is, first it's going to be released here, and then immediately it's going on the website in the introductory summaries that aren't posted yet. Now, the information that's been given in the last month since the interview with Sarah Simmons has been quite extraordinary in certain ways. What started out as simple summaries for newcomers that might on the radio shows here and come onto the website, right? Yeah, so I thought, well, they're still called summaries. Summary 2 is 30-some pages long at this point. Yeah. And the first bit is a little bit about, our organization, the evolution of the contemporary MCEO teachings. When it got to a certain point in that, the Beloved just kind of like let it rip on certain information. They did the same thing with Summary 1, which isn't quite done yet. I just finished Summary 2. Summary 1 is so far 16 or something pages, and it's probably going to be over 20 something when we get there. The information that they've been putting in here is part of what they're referring to as their official disclosure installment 1. And when we did the radio interview, there wasn't time to talk about a lot of the subjects that we're planning to speak about. So Sarah's actually invited me back to speak on the 28th and maybe one after that. But the information that the Beloveds are officially disclosing is quite interesting. There has been a period in time. We've had tons of history at this point in the work, but there's this one little area of time that I've not been able to access the records on, and I was always like, yeah, come on, Beloveds, I know something funky happened during that period. It's an Atlantean period. It's actually 2 Atlantean periods. And it was like this big gag order on the files that pertain to this particular set of periods. One of the periods we learned a little bit about was 13,400 BC, that we learned was called the Great Netting, that had to do with the point when what we call the net, or the Nibiru electrostatic transduction field, that is basically controlling our planetary environment and our DNA, when that became active in the planetary atmosphere. There's another period after that I knew it was about 13,000 years ago. And there's this whole big thing about 13,000 years ago that certain people like to talk about that are also in the New Age movement. And there was a whole big secret around what actually occurred during this period. Well, we found out that the period about 13,000 years ago is actually 10,948 BC. That period of time, something extraordinary and not in the positive took place on this planet during the Atlantean dramas that created something that we are now moving toward the fulfillment of in 2012. So we're going to see in this workshop, we're going to explore some of the writings. I'll read some of the new information that they've given from the summaries, and they're not out there yet, so you'll be the first to know that part. Then we're going to go beyond that information in this workshop to begin to understand what we're actually moving toward. Why is 2012 such a big, important time for everybody? Everybody's predicting, end times. They're predicting pole shift. Even certain people that do what we refer to as the Daisy of Death program on their radio interview on September 7th, they actually had said that the Mayans are predicting that we won't make it to see past February of 2013 because we're going to go into pole shift. Right? So that was interesting timing, too, that person happened to be on the radio on the 7th of September, and we had our interview coming up right after that. I think that's how it worked. Yeah, he did his first anyway. But there's information pertaining to this period of time of 10,948 BC where a rather extraordinary set of events took place that we are now living the legacy of. It's more of, yes, the Atlantean conspiracy, but in a much larger way, because what we are moving toward in 2012 is not an organic stellar activation cycle. The Beloveds, as we know from the Voyagers books, the Beloveds had, the Guardians had triggered an early activation of the stellar activation cycle at the half point in the last sixth continuum cycle of the 26,556-year cycle. They did this because they found out about an event that was going to take place in 2976 AD, where we would not make it to the next stellar activation cycle in 4230 AD. So the Guardians actually triggered the opening of the Stargates this time. But if they didn't, they were going to open anyway from the efforts of what are referred to as the Illuminati Elder Teams. Just think, the ones we've explored in the Voyagers books. You have all sorts of different visitor races that have come here, and they're a part of our forbidden and hidden history. Well, with those Illuminati races that created the Illuminati human hybrids that live among us now, and some of us are even those who you can't tell, right? Because we're all in a blended gene code. We all have human faces. There were certain things that from this Atlantean period were specifically orchestrated to get us to this point in 2012. And what was supposed to happen in 2012, it's really funny because certain paradigms, even now, are teaching that, it's just going to be a great ascension period. We all go into the fourth dimension. Yeah, that's because our bodies just got totally flattened, right? I mean, there is a whole deception taking place, and it is not a new deception. Some of the things that the Beloveds revealed about this time period is something called the Atlantean Death Sciences and the role they played in that history. There was a particular aspect of the Atlantean Death Sciences that was referred to as the Bloom of Doom paradigm. And it's interesting because it's alive and well in contemporary times as well. Now, in the official disclosure information that we're actually putting out there as introductory information, find the website, hit the, introductory button, and you have these options. They're coming in. Right now, there's nothing under the options. The summaries, they're actually revealing a comparative between the crystal spiral and the Fibonacci spiral, between the different pieces that we've explored of the Bloom of Doom paradigm. Because understanding these has to do with understanding what is happening with what you hear all the rage and all the people who know something about what's happening in 2012 always go back to the precession of the equinox cycles and what that means in relation to what's aligning with what in 2012, and even the Mayans knew, and that's why it's the end of their calendar and all of these kind of things. We're going to find out some fascinating things about the precession of the equinox and what that has to do with what we are aligning with, what our planet and our solar system is aligning with through the galactic core in 2012. There's information, and the reason why, by the time we got done with summary 2, the reason why the Guardians have begun their official disclosure program is because of the severity of the consequences of the deception that is being run on the planet. There's something that will occur in 2012. Well, it would occur in 2012 if it weren't for Guardian intervention, and we all wouldn't be having to worry about it at this point. Might as well max out your credit cards because we're all going to be gone. But that's not what's going to happen. That's what certain people and forces on the planet are actually trying to make happen as a fulfillment of the agenda from Atlantis, but that isn't going to happen the way they think it is. We are not going to go into pole shift in 2012, but there is something else that is going to happen that was part of that larger pole shift agenda. The Beloveds will be able to stop the pole shift part, but they won't be able to stop certain levels of activation of what's called the Metatronic code in the planetary grids. And this has to do with what we've referred to briefly before as the Alpha Omega code and that kind of thing. So we're going to learn more about what that is. But there's something that's going to happen in the DNA of anybody who lives on the planet that will happen automatically because of the activations that are taking place in the Planetary Templar through the halls of Amene Stargates in 2012. And they're not activations that are being generated by the Christic side. They are activations at the Metatronic side. And it was supposed to end up as the sixth extinction. That was literally supposed to be it was supposed to create these phenomena. We're supposed to create a very rapid pole shift where literally everything on the planet would become extinct. And it's really funny because a lot of the Illuminati races, the human hybrid Illuminati races on the planet, they know pieces of this information. They still work in service to their off-planet advisors and directors, and some of them kin. They don't realize that they are considered an expendable commodity, and they always were from the beginning of this plan. So it's kind of interesting the way the official disclosure is being put out, when it's going to be put out on the website. It's actually letting them know that there's a few things they didn't let you know, like they were going to leave you here when they did this. And there is an option for people, both angelic human and people with the Illuminati gene codes, that if they are able to engage with what is called the Stardust alignment, which is the Christic alignment, during that key period, and it's a peak period on December 21st of 2012. If they can align with that, they can actually get back into an ascension loop. Well, they will get an imprint of the codes that they do not have, the ascension codes they do not have. So it's their first and last chance for actually to have freedom from the hierarchical soul groups that they've incarnated out of. So we'll see where that goes, because it's not just about Illuminati people or people with Illuminati gene codes. It's about everybody. Because if certain things are not done on the planet, and if we don't anchor certain types of frequencies, we will automatically flip into Metatronic reversal in the DNA. And that applies to anybody on the planet. So this is why the Beloveds are beginning now, in preparation for 2012, with the information on what's called the Silver Seed Awakening. That is a certain set of frequencies that will be coming in 2012. We'll understand a lot more about that once we see a little bit more in depth about the precession of the equinox cycles and what all of this stuff means and what it has to do with 2012. But there's something that we haven't talked about in a long time. It was in the Voyagers books, and in the early days we talked about it. And that has to do with what's called the Sphere of Amenti. The Sphere of Amenti was the race morphogenic field that was set in the core of, or was meant to go into the core of Earth in order to open the Amenti stargates during the, beginning in the 2012 cycle. Now, we haven't heard about the Sphere of Amenti in ages. Like, where was it last that we heard? Because connected to the Sphere of Amenti was something called the Ark of the Covenant. Now, the Ark of the Covenant was what the angelic human seeding 3 took place through, because the damage to the Templar, the Beloveds had created the Ark of the Covenant portal passage between Earth and the Andromeda Galaxy. Well, we know where in the Andromeda Galaxy now, Eartha. But there was supposed to be a whole process that would unfold in the opening of the Amenti Stargates in 2012 that had to do with the Sphere of Amenti being in Earth's core, and then the blue flame of Amenti coming down into the Sphere of Amenti, and then the gates would open and we'd all have our ascension cycle. Well, since the Voyagers books were published, it has not gone particularly well in this ascension cycle. The gates are still open, and this is good. However, the The Halls of Amenti stargates fell under Illuminati control in 2003. We tried to rebirth those. That fell under control of the Illuminati races by the end of 2003. The Amenti gates are completely controlled by the Illuminati forces. That is why, progressively, the Beloveds have activated the Polarian interface gate systems, the Ark of the Covenant gate systems, and the Spanner gate systems. There's one more set that will bring all of those together that creates a transharmonic gate system called the Aurora Silverseed gates that will be opening in 2012, in the 2012 period. So we still have gates open, we still have the ascension cycle underway, but where's that sphere and what's happening with that blue flame that's supposed to come down and activate it? Because the blue flame of Amenti, or the staff of Amenti, was a piece, Earth's piece, of Tara's morphinogenic field. Tara fell into reversal during the, when was it, 2005 when we went to Morocco? During Demon Fest 1 in Morocco. It went so badly energetically in Morocco because of what was occurring in the larger drama in the Pleiades system. And right now, the last thing we need on this planet is to have a reverse blue flame coming down to activate the race morphogenic field, because it will take it all the way into reversal. So, this comes to why we are in Ireland. And this is probably why they didn't even bother telling me about it before, because until they got through what they've given me so far for the summaries, I wouldn't have understood what and why. When we're here, excuse me, in our time together here, and some of it will be with you and some of it we won't. Like, we won't be going with you tomorrow to the sites, but these sites are important. This place, that is now called Ireland, was once called Lohas Atlantis. It was the northern part of Atlantis. And even in the Voyages books, we had little hints where they talked about the original Ark of the Covenant portal passage. It originally came down in Ireland. All right? Now, well, Atlantis. Well, then it was moved around 49,000 something or other BC, I believe, because of damage to the grids after progression of the Atlantean Holocaust periods, where the grids were being damaged over here. So they moved the Ark of the Covenant, where it would still connect to Andromeda, but it would come down and angle through into the Great Pyramid area of Egypt, into the fourth chakra of the planet. And that's where it's been ever since that period. Right now, that entire complex and the Halls of Amenti Stargates are under Illuminati control, which means they're in something called fall alignment. Now, fall alignment we'll talk about a bit too, and we'll learn a bit more about in the workshop periods together. But the big mission here, there is a big mission. And it's kind of funny because we didn't put anything out. And usually if you put more detailed stuff out, some more people say, okay, maybe it'll be interesting, so maybe I'll come. We didn't do any of that. So it's almost like it's interesting that who showed up. Because this was a very special mission, and it wasn't put out as one. This particular mission is because of, right now, what we are looking at with the Sphere of Amenti, which is actually still in Earth's core at this point. It was in 80-something that it came down and is still there. But the blue flame of Amenti is going to be coming down into the sphere, and it will reverse it. Now, right now, the blue flame would come down through the Palladian spiral, which is aligned with the pyramid at Giza. It used to be the Sirian spiral, but now, I forget when, way back in Atlantean history, they changed it to where it aligns with the Palladian spiral. That is where the blue flame will finish its descent. I think it's in the upper frequency bands of D3. I think that's where the blue flame, because it started to come down early, and the Beloved sealed it, so it didn't. So there is a mission that has to be done, that if we're going to be able to save any of the Sphere of Amenti race morphogenic field. Now, if you can imagine that as a little sphere, or large sphere, down in the core of the planet, situated in the core gates of the planet, and you can imagine, too, up in the Andromeda M31 galaxy, there's the connection point, and there's like a tube of energy that runs down between them. Now, you can move where that bottom part of the tube comes down, and it will still come down into the core, all right? What we are here to do is to actually assist the Beloveds in moving the Ark of the Covenant back to the Atlantean space that it was in, which was up here in this area. This has to do with the Skellig-Michael grids and those kind of things. And we were actually told we couldn't bring anybody to Skellig-Michael. The trip was a go, and then something happened where some tourist fell off and got killed or something, and then they closed it. That's what we were told. So we were told we couldn't go on it. This is okay. We can get close enough to run the grids. But the mission that we're being charged with is basically being the anchoring rods of literally moving the Ark of the Covenant portal passage away from the Palladian spiral that comes down into Giza. When the blue flame releases into a portion of the sphere of Amenti, it will release and reverse that portion. This is all connected to the other things that are happening in 2012 with the Metatronic activations. That would mean all of us would go into reversal if something wasn't done. Now, the reason the beloveds are moving the Ark of the Covenant, first they're going to move it back here to where its original, proximity of its original location, the Atlantean grids. And then they have to prepare the grids over at the Gruol, which is Siesta Key Beach, so they can line it directly up and connect it in with the watchtower grids and all of that. There'll be a portion of it left here. It's almost like they're going to make several. If you take one tube and kind of splice it off and make several anchoring points, they're going to do that. And I know that one of them is going to stay here, one of them is going to be in Siesta Key, one of them, a few more of them, I don't know how many they're going to be, they didn't tell me yet. But we're actually going to be assisting in that process. As we walk the grids here, as we go through the various spaces that are all at this point probably very mixed coded, let's say. There'll be some Christic coding in the grids and there'll be some not Christic coding in the grids. Everywhere we are being guided to go with this tour has to do with passing through certain grid points that connect into the original place where the Ark of the Covenant came down. They're going to show us as we go to certain places different activations that we do. The first one that we don't need to be there with you, and I have to start taking down the stuff for the next workshop, which is tomorrow night. What they're going to do, this is, I don't think we've ever done this before in this orientation. Usually it's like the brief disorientation, talk to you for an hour about whatever, right? And say hi and glad you're here. But tonight, before we leave, we're going to do a brief but interesting journey meditation. So we usually don't do those in the orientation, but because you're going out on grid work assignment tomorrow, where the grids that you walk on, they don't want you to go without a team with you. So there's an interesting little team. I call them little because they look little when you meet them. Yeah, I won't spoil the surprise about them. They're blue. But they are really neat, and they're part of our team of guardians. But they have a special job in relation to a place that we will be taken, and in this meditation. And I don't think it will last very long, but I think we'll probably be going back there for other purposes somewhere else, in the workshop programs. So we'll be doing that before we go. When the spectrum of information that we're going to be covering in this workshop that has to do with the spectrum of information they've been throwing at me in the summaries and like just all this new stuff, I'm going, you're going to say that to the new people? You're putting that in there? And it's like full transparency. Bang, 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 here's what it's about. Take it or leave it. You know what I mean? But there's something refreshing about that too. And they're saying, don't underestimate people. The people who are ready will be ready, and they're waiting for the information. So it's kind of exciting because there's a lot of new information that was new to me that has to do with those time periods in the Atlantean drama, the hidden ones that they didn't even put in the Voyagers books or we've never talked about, and what is occurring in 2012. It's actually going to be a celebration, at least for the Christic races, because the things that the Illuminati races have been trying very hard and planning very meticulously to make sure they happen in 2012 are simply not going to. And I just found out, it was like right before I came down, I was still on the computer typing up what I thought, again, was the end of the summary too. It keeps expanding every time I go back to proof it. But they just said, and in 2976, the Illuminati find it wasn't such a good idea after all. Now, in books, they had mentioned that the Guardians saw a future time frame that we were lining up with in 2976, where Earth was destroyed. It blew up. That's not the only thing that blows up. It's a whole complex called the Alpha Omega complex. So the Illuminati people that are on planet know very little of any of this. They've been left just about as clueless as anybody else on the planet. The ones who have been controlling these dramas from behind the scenes are the interdimensional extraterrestrial fallen race groups. And, you know, we're all related to some versions of them, not necessarily the fallen ones. But this is interesting because a lot of them, you have all sorts of secret societies and not so secret societies, like Templars, for instance. Well, what used to be the Templars. I won't go into naming names, but I've named those before. They consider themselves very free. Let's just put it that way. When you go to the core of what they are actually up to, they're actually Luciferians. They're calling on the power of Lucifer, and like. Boy, is that stupid. I mean, sorry, guys. I mean, get a grip. Oh, yeah, you'll get power, and it'll eat you alive, right? That's what's happening. There's a lot of forces, negative forces, occult forces on this planet, and they are interdimensional groups. Some of them are extraterrestrial, too. Some of them are just interdimensional, which means technically they don't really have bodies unless they possess yours. But there's a lot of forces on the planet, human forces and Illuminati human forces, that worship these guys. They do their sacrifices, their rituals, the whole bit. If they only knew what this whole endgame was about, they would probably make better choices. Hopefully they will. I can hardly wait to find out what we're going to know by the end of the workshop, because knowing this much about the information that's happening that is so new compared to the last time when we had a workshop, of understanding what's really taking place in 2012 and, you know, what the Guardian teams need to do with that, and what is it going to look like after this. Because a lot of the other groups are saying, oh, there's not going to be an after this. And when you see the title of the new book that I'm supposed to have done with the Beloveds for release next summer, that ought to be interesting. God. Not to mention the workshops in between, and my daughter is going to be giving birth to a baby, and oh boy, yeah, so I get to be grandma. Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, but the title of the book is kind of like, ooh, what's happening? Because it's like 2012, Life After Earth, right? Right? And the first thing you might think is, uh-oh, right? That means 2012, we got to do Life After Earth, right? It actually has the opposite message. We'll get through 2012. For the first time, we're the ones that are teaching the up message. No, it's not going to roll. We're still going to be here. And there's a positive healing thing that can take place in 2012 and move us forward into the future. The full title of the book is 2012, Life After Earth, Orb Whisperers, and the Silver Seed Awakening. Orb Whisperers. One of the things we're going to learn how to do with that book is going to have a lot of techniques in it, and it's going to be geared for somebody that even if they didn't spend 10 years studying this stuff, they could pick up that book, read it, and get immediate benefit and start making contact directly with the Beloveds, because it's going to literally teach us a bit more about how to orb ourselves, going into orb, but also how to begin the calling in the orbs. I mean, you have elemental orbs that can come in, and that's where you get like the snow flurries in your photographs. But you also have the larger orbs, the visitation orbs. Orbs can be positive, negative. They can be just phenomena that happen from 3D reflections. So we're going to learn more about orbs, what types there are. We're going to learn about making contact with guardian beings who will come and visit us in the form of orbs, and eventually teach us to go into the form of orbs so we can visit them. So this process, this book is where we start to be orb whisperers, just like you have horse whisperers and dog whisperers and this whisperers and that whisperers, you know, ones who communicate and establish rapport with. Well, we're going to be having that kind of active involvement as we move forward with the Guardians, first through orb contact, but it'll be protected orb contact. So you can tell the difference between whether you're dealing with guardian orbs or just any old orbs, because you can get orb visitation from black hole systems as well. Because one of the deceptions that's being run out in the in I think it's particularly in a book that was from England, I think, a lady's into her orbs, and this is Archangel Metatron, and that's Archangel whatever, and She has like a set of questions in the front, and one of the questions she asked was, can orbs be negative? And the answer that her angel orbs gave her were, oh no, because negative dark angels don't have light bodies. Yeah, right. Right? What about the Vesica Pisces mutation? What about all we've learned about artificial light fields, static light fields being generated through the Metatronic technologies for black hole systems? So there's deception going out in relation to orbs as well. It was funny that we ended up getting our Orb Fest photographs, and it was only in the last one that I actually got some. I never chased orb photographs. I never was overly impressed by the orb phenomena. But in St. Kitts, it started when we did one of the energy meditations on the beach as the group, and somebody wanted to take a picture of something, and they ended up with orbs in it. So then a couple other people had cameras and started taking pictures, and sure enough, everybody's getting orbs. And the next night, they had talked to, I think it was right the next night, it was whatever time we went out on the beach after that. The Guardians had given us more information about orbs and about elemental orbs and that kind of thing. And they gave us the orb calls. And we used those in the meditation, and sure enough, there were more orbs. And then when we did the drum circle in Sarasota, there were orbs everywhere, right? So it's becoming like, oh, neat, they're coming when you call them. Yeah. So it was kind of like that. It was enough to pay attention to, but not make a big deal out of. The Beloveds are making a big deal out of it. They're saying this is just a little bit of hint of official disclosure installment 1. You can take it as, reflections on the lens, or take it like whatever you want. But they're going to teach us. They've always said that the orbs are just the beginning. When they started coming in orb form, they said that was just the beginning of contact. So we're going to be moving into those kind of teachings of learning more about orbing ourselves, which means being able to transfigure our atomic structure and turn into light and sound so we can get out of here and come back and visit until it's all over. But anyway, we'll be learning more about how to do that. And also the orb contact. There's going to be an orb flow release that comes in with the Silver Seed Awakening in 2012. And I don't know a lot about that yet, but it's going to be an influx coming in from the Achille field. Now, the Achille is the original host star that the fragment of Terra that is called Earth was placed in order to re-evolve. Well, Earth isn't re-evolving, but fortunately Achille is still there. And so is the portion of Earth's quantum, Mente Earth's quantum, that did not go in to the fall and into the nets. And that part we've talked about before, that we refer to it sometimes as Ascension Earth or Median Earth. It's a third of the original Mente quantum that never got entangled in the negative de-evolutionary path. In the writings, and they haven't explained yet exactly what is that, but I can feel it's different. They've introduced something called higher and lower Earth. We're in lower Earth. No kidding. This had to do with what happened in those two Atlantean periods of 13,400 and 10,948 BC, where when the nets went up, they netted a certain portion of the quantum. We already had from 5.5 million years ago what they called the wall in time, when a part of Earth's quantum fell into full reversal to form phantom Earth. All right, so we lost a third of the quantum, the whole quantum, 100%. A third of it was gone there. A third of the quantum was held in median Earth under protection where it couldn't roll. And then we had the blended Earth quantum, which was the final third in the middle. We are in net Earth, and that is half of that final third quantum, so we are a sixth quantum. Well, that got split too into higher and lower Earth. So there is a place that if we were going to go up the vertical stack of planes into the next place, that we would stop as far as, okay, we get out of here, where's the next stop? Where's the rest stop, right, before you go further in ascension? We've been aiming for median Earth first, and then we would do Achille, and then we do Shala 3, I think, and then we would do Eartha in M31. Well, there's a little step in between median Earth and where we are, and that's referred to as higher Earth. That's actually the concept of heaven that people have been raised with. It has to do with those frequency bands. It is a set of the same three-dimensional frequency bands, but in a quantum that from the point of, I believe they said 13,400 BC, that part evolved differently out from under the net and out from under Illuminati control. So it is still a portion of our Earth's quantum that it is physically solid. When you're there, it's as solid as here, but it evolved along a different path, and it is directly connected into the larger quantum of median Earth. So we're going to be learning a little bit more, I think, if not a lot more, about what is this higher Earth. That's the first place where we're going to learn to project to. And like we've been learning to project higher, like going up. We started with Eartha, and then we've been working down. We went to Eartha, and then we've gone to, median Earth and Ashale. And now we're coming down to the one that's closest, the reality field that's closest. It is right here with us, but again, at a different angular rotation of particle spin. So we're going to find out a bit more about that in this workshop and what that has to do with what we're looking at in 2012 and all of those kind of things. So let me see. I'm going to look. I have my little scribbly notes on the back here. Did I miss anything? Oh, yeah. There's another thing that came out in the summaries that's called the encryption lattice. Now, we've had anatomy for 10 years. With all sorts of parts of everything, light body, spirit body, this body, that body, in the multidimensional anatomy. There is a part of this somewhere, and I'm not sure where it fits yet. They haven't showed me. I've actually seen it in my own field, or at least a portion of it, and it is called the encryption lattice, and it is like a sphere of moving forms and shapes that actually surround you. And the planet has one too. The encryption lattice, the best way to understand it will be it's connected to what we've talked about as far as the Age body and the Jade body and the Avias and the Aveas and all of that. I think it exists in between them, but on the planetary level, it's this part of the planet. It's actually the living morphogenic field of the planet, the three-dimensional morphogenic field. It is actually it's 66%, I think they said, Metatronic at this point. And that encryption lattice actually will control what the DNA does and what frequencies can and cannot come into the planetary field or into our own body's field. With the encryption lattices, there's going to be an activation, the Metatronic activation sets that are going to take place. They're already beginning between now and 2012, but the big ones come in 2012. And it's through the encryption lattice, as they exist right now within our fields and within the planetary field, that we would get full reversal, just like the sphere of Amente would go into full reversal when the reverse blue flame hits it. So we're going to be shown a bit about the encryption lattices, wherever exactly these are, and how to begin putting different forms in them, different patterns, which are different instructions, all right, where it allows for a different set of frequencies to come in. And those frequencies will be connected to higher Earth, which will be connected to median Earth, which will be connected to Ashale, which will be connected to Shala 3, which will be connected to Eartha up in M31, right? We've been moving the mutations out of every level of our multidimensional anatomy for literally 10 years with techniques. At this point, the encryption lattice actually controls on the planet, the geomagnetic field. And that geomagnetic field controls our DNA and literally what our immediate fields are doing. So we're going to be given ways to begin the process of clearing off the progressively activating Metatronic coding in the encryption lattice and bringing it back around to natural crystallic coding by aligning it with new frequency patterns that are coming in from the higher Earth. And they haven't talked to me about it, but I get the feeling that there's a set of gates that go from here to higher Earth before we get from here to median Earth, so we're going to learn a bit about that. By the end of this, I do believe, as this workshop, we will have assisted in the literal moving of the Ark of the Covenant portal passage. So it will not be connected to the blue flame, the reverse blue flame staff of Amente coming down into the race morphogenetic field through Giza. That will still happen. What we need to do in order to not have all of the race morphogenic field go into that mess is first move the Ark of the Covenant, and through the Ark of the Covenant we will be given the silver seed flame. And that is just like the flame of the staff of Amente, blue flame, was supposed to come down from Tara. This will come down literally from M31, but not just there. It'll pass through M31 Andromeda, but it's actually going to come from the Messiahonic matrix over in the Aquarian matrix. So it is literally a new lease on life for the portion of the sphere of Amente that can access it. And through the moved Ark of the Covenant, that is where in 2012 that silver seed will come down. But I believe we're going to get a little bit of it, as far as enough for the activation of the Aquiferian shield that we are a part of here. We usually get our activations first before the planetary grids get them, because we assist to hold them on the planetary grids. So I do believe, they haven't said exactly, but I think before the end of the workshop we are going to be getting the first bit of our own silver seed awakening in the Aquiferian shield. I will know more about this when, by the end of the workshop than I do now. But I'm excited about the information because it just brought together, those summaries brought together a lot of things that, like you have pieces of data floating around all over the place and not sure where that goes, like Sphere of Mente, what has to do with it. The summaries don't talk about the Sphere of Mente, but the information they do talk about is all about what's happening with the Sphere of Mente. So we will take the information that will be new to us from the summaries, and then we'll use that as a launching pad for the more detailed information that will come through the workshop. At least when you leave this workshop, you can have the peace of knowing, now you know what is happening in 2012 as far as what is aligning with what. What's all this Mayan calendar stuff? Why are people predicting all the doomsday stuff? What does it have to do with the precession of the equinoxes? You will have a much better understanding of what that information is about and why it's being pushed so hard in the media right now. We've got even the History Channel is doing their, in America, they're doing their thing on Nostradamus effect, right? And all the doomsday prophecies. You have like 6 or 7 different options of doomsday shows at this point in any given week on the TV in normal viewing hours. Yeah. And this is like 3 years before the fact. So I can hardly wait to see what, right before 2012. The whole 2012 will probably be all doomsday shows, ET invasion shows. Floods, famine, fire, you name it. Right. There's a reason why that we're being given this information. We start to understand a little bit more about encryption lattices. Every thought we think is a thing in terms of encryption lattices. These are radiation lattices that have certain specific form and shape and have a specific vibration. And every thought we think makes a picture in our encryption lattice. Every emotion we have creates a picture in our encryption lattice. Everything we watch on TV creates a picture in our encryption lattice. Looks like somebody really, really wants the mass collective to outpicture for them the planetary cataclysm events. It's just being beamed at us everywhere. And every time, this is why for children, those kill 'em up, kill 'em, shoot 'em up, chop 'em up games that they're, doing, the electronic games, they can be so damaging because the emotional body does not react to that thing as if it's fiction. It actually is experientially experiencing that game as a real occurrence. And those encryptions, that encryption of the fighting, of the killing, of the whatever, is actually making energy forms in the encryption lattice. And at this point, the showdown, we are moving toward a showdown in 2012. And it's not a showdown about what's going to happen to the planetary grids. Finally, it's not about that. Because what's happening with the planetary grids is already set. All right, and we'll read a bit about what that is. And the good part is, no, it's not going to roll. Hopefully, if things go well, it won't crack either, but we should be all right. The beloveds are not foreseeing any major cataclysmic mess happening in the 2012 period. But the showdown is about BPR, or base pulse rhythm. Because the base pulse rhythm is the core vibration at any given moment of your encryption lattice. And that actually is what will align you with a like energetic consequence. So it's actually our core encryption and the base pulse rhythm of that core encryption that aligns us with different events in reality. If you say, oh, I want this, but your biological core encryption is actually twisted in a different way, you won't get what you're trying to manifest. You'll get that instead. Because the consequence it is the consequence to the action of what the vibration is in your core encryption matrix. Right now, our core encryption matrices are being controlled by the geomagnetic field of the planet, which is being controlled by something called the synthetic or artificial Christ consciousness grid that was set during this about 13,000 years ago period, as some people like to say, which was that 10,948 BC period. We need to, if we are going to end up where we would like to be by 2013, as far as what we are aligned with, we need to make a shift in our BPR, because right now the BPR and the core encryption lattice is being directed by the planetary geomagnetic fields, and they are activating the planetary geomagnetic fields on the alpha omega pulses. So we will progressively be getting that mess in our fields, in our epigenetic overlay, and all of that. So we're going to be we've progressively been working toward this, where we started in the last workshop the stardust flows, or the Eron currents coming in literally from our own spirit body across the vector line. So this is just the beginning. In 2012, it's not a grid showdown because it's already determined. We know what parts are falling, and we know we're not going to let the whole thing fall. So it's like, that's like anticlimactic as far as everybody's, it's going to roll. No, it's not. Right? It's just not. But there is going to be something severe that does occur if a person or being does not anchor the stardust flows coming in. It will automatically be dragged into, the DNA will be dragged into Metatronic reversal. So at that point, if a person goes through that, they will not be able to ever do biological ascension again. They will not be able to do transfiguration, atomic transfiguration. Now, if they're lucky, they will be able to do a hosted Bardo out when the time comes and still get to an ascension path. But it gets more difficult every day that goes past that 2012 deciding point. And that deciding point takes place somewhere between the 21st and the 22nd of December. So we're already trying to, we're going to try to put in, they would like us to be at Siesta Key on the beach there at the Gruel, because that's the, there's a lot about that we don't know yet, actually. The Gruel, yes, it's the planetary Stargate 2, but it's something else too that has to do with the meditation we're going to do. It's called the Blue Crystal. But anyway, we're going to try for 2012 to have a workshop where we can be on the beach with a drum circle for the 21st, December 21st, to herald this event in. It's going to be a big event. There's probably going to be groups all over the place doing their solstice craziness celebrations. Hopefully by the time the beloveds get done, I don't know how many official disclosure installments they're going to do, but if this is one, I hate to see 4. Right? I'm just going to be laying it out on the line. I think there will be more people who wake up to realize that some of the grid work they have been doing has not been for what they thought it was. So I imagine there will probably be more people that come in from some of the other paradigms when they read this and they compare. And then there will be those who don't care anyway, and they'll be going off and doing their Metatronic activations and those kind of things. But we're going to try. It's going to be a very special evening because it literally is the evening that will determine the future evolution of this race. And that is when the evolutionary destiny split, right there. Because once the beings get Metatronic, they will not get the bodies out in ascension. So they can do a hosted Bardo ascension, but they're progressively going to get the net coming down, controlling their mind, where they're not going to want to. So they are going to be aligned with what's called the path of fall. In the summary information they gave, it only came out in like 2 pages. Where I love how the beloveds can do this. If I had to explain to somebody the path of rise or the path of fall, I go, oh boy, here we go. Because there's like a million diagrams and tons of technicals. They just simplified it in a way where it's very easy to understand what is taking place, and they did it by bringing out first the information about the encryption lattices. So we'll look a little bit at the definitions that they gave for that, because this Earth is going into the path of fall. That alignment locks in on December 21st of 2012, and there will still be the portion, not of the Earth, but of the people on the Earth that will be able to pull out of that particular alignment by bringing in and aligning with the geomagnetic fields of first higher Earth and then median Earth. So literally, where most people's their encryption lattices are a small version of the planetary geomagnetic field, ours will become a small version of higher Earth's geomagnetic field. So it will literally change the encryption, which will progressively make it where we can progressively take our atoms to that place and shift out of here. So it's the beginning of the next step of slide. And before we can slide, we have to shift. And what we need to shift is our BPR alignment that is currently being controlled by the planetary geomagnetic field. And we'll progressively be moving toward that shift from this point to 2012, when the big BPR showdown happens. And it's just a showdown for people, individuals, for each individual. It's the time when an individual makes a choice, and if they choose not to choose, they're still making a choice. If you choose not to choose, you get aligned with the larger quantum of the environmental field around you, which means you're aligned with fall, period. I mean, it's just that cut and dry. And that's why the beloveds are trying to let people know, like, you can't say nobody told you, that this was occurring. So that's why they're doing the official disclosure, installments. What it's going to look like, or what we're going to participate in order to move the Ark of the Covenant portal passage. I mean, it's like, oh, we're just like pick it up and drag it over. What? I don't know what this is going to look like, but it will be an adventure, as workshops usually are. Hopefully, we'll be staying on relative. It's a bit, for some reason, I think the beloveds have mercy on all of us, but especially me when it comes to time frames. When we're in Phoenix or Sarasota, forget it. You never know. I don't know. They did that in early Ireland too, in early island workshops. We'll try to stay on schedule here. Yeah, for the workshops. The big one where we have an intensive day will be Tuesday, where we have 1 to 5, and then after dinner we have 8 to 11 or whatever. It's kind of like till 8 till whatever. And in the meantime, I need to take down the program. I have the written information where they're explaining all these things, and I have a bunch of these. If you saw my desk, 5 hours before we left, it was before we packed to go, right on the plane to get here. I've been doing all-nighters for at least 2.5 weeks. And my desk, it's a large desk. It's like I got this glass top thing that kind of forms a U around me, 2 of them put together, because it starts out with papers, computer and papers. All right, so you get part of this goes here and part of it goes on the computer. And then you have papers everywhere. And then you get the second layer of papers. And then you get research books of this and that and the other thing that he had to look stuff up. And then there's another layer of papers. It was like this deep all around me. I didn't know what part was supposed to come to Ireland, what part was, it was a nightmare. So the information in there, finally, I actually did. I had 1 hour left to pack my suitcases before I had to leave to get on the plane. But I actually found glass. That's like, is it Monday yet for me? Right? Made it through till Monday. Well, hey, found glass. That means I made it through the menagerie of paper. And it's all important stuff of like 20 different things that are interconnected, but you have to, they just keep piling when the line comes through. So with all of the papers, I managed to find a number of things I hope I have time to make into diagrams, because they will be very helpful in understanding the part of the information that's about the precession of the equinoxes and some of the other things. Because right now, I've got it in descriptive writing in the summaries, and it's easier if you see pictures. So I'm going to be spending some time trying to get the graphs down with that. And there's some other things that aren't in the writing yet that I know they will show me through the graphs, as they always do. So I'm basically doing the on-call thing. Here we go, another one of those sort of security clearance. It was almost, I don't even feel it's like security clearance, because they're like, just reveal it, put it in. As soon as we get done with the information in like one of the summaries, it gets sent over to Jared at the Watchtower, and he's putting it up on the internet board, right? So it's there for anybody that goes in, and I imagine it might start some interesting conversations out there when we kind of expose the Bloom of Doom paradigm without mentioning anybody here in 3D here, just explaining the paradigm and stuff. So anyway, I will take some time to put some graphs together to try to illustrate the information. I'm looking forward to what the new information, plus what we already have is. I have enough basically that I could give a workshop on just the new information that's been given, but I have a feeling there's a part I don't know about yet. And usually that happens in workshops. There's always a part that when the shield assembles, when the people come and get together, it's like the collective, all of us are like little Aparthi receivers, and everybody brings in a piece of knowledge just in frequency form. And because I've got that whatever little twist in my gene code that allows me to be able to translate line, right, where I can translate it, the fact that you're all here, and this goes for any workshop, when there's a group of people assembled, it helps hugely in being able to bring in a stronger line for the translation. So I feel that there's something that is a gift that we will give to each other that comes from this assembly of people that I don't know about yet, that's connected to all of these things. But anyway, before how long have I been going on? How long do I have?
15 minutes tops.
Okay, great. Yeah, we're going to do a journey before we go. We're going to do a journey before we go. So you have fortification and companionship when you go off into the world of the beautiful Irish grids. It's really beautiful out there, even though it's not like, the middle of summer or anything. It is so green and gorgeous out there. I hope it stays sunny. But even in the rain, it's pretty. But we will, in the journey, it's just going to be a short journey. It's going to be the beginning and entry point journey to a place called, they haven't given me the name of it yet, actually. They just refer to it as the Blue Crystal. It is a large blue hexagon-shaped crystal. And I will probably draw a rough sketch of that. Just imagine like the top part of a crystal is hexagon-shaped, right, six-sided, but then a long thing kind of like a building would be, like a skyscraper building, but it's a crystal. And it's an amazing shade of blue. It's none of the shades of blue we've worked with before, which is kind of neat. And I've seen it. They took me there a couple times in the last couple of months, and I learn a little bit about it every time, but then it's like gone, and they don't talk to me about it. It's like, what? What's with the blue crystal? So they're going to teach us a bit more about this blue crystal. I do know it is connected on the median earth level, and I have a feeling on the higher earth level as well, to the area that is the Grual here. So it's not connected to the Watchtower, which is the Pine Island location. It's connected to the Siesta Key Beach place. And it has to do with the core, how do they word it, the core elemental force, like the core consciousness field of the elemental force of the outer domains. Now, the outer domains that we have talked about, when we talked about the outer, the middle, the inner, the core domains, in creation structure, the outer domains have a base of endoplasmic water matter base. And this crystal is called the Firewater Crystal. And it has to do with the consciousness collective that, just like we've talked about consciousness collective, say if you wanted to know hydrogen, every hydrogen atom in the entire cosmos, right, would be part of that consciousness collective called hydrogen. Well, this is a consciousness collective that is called, it has a name, and I have to look it up. It's on one of the charts from a while ago. But it is the endoplasm consciousness field. And these are literally the ones who, the consciousness that is not just guards, but are the creator consciousness for anything made out of matter in the outer domains. And it's a particular appointment. There's another one that I haven't seen what color it is yet that corresponds to this that we're going to learn about by 2012 that corresponds with the ectoplasmic base of the middle domains. And at a certain point, both will be activated. But when we do this blue crystal meditation, this blue crystal is an endoplasmic crystal. It itself is conscious, but there's also, in this journey, we go to visit it. And for anybody who has used the Arishmatae visitations, where you know Arishmatae, This is actually, if you could be up in the air looking down on where is Arishmatai, this is not too far away. If you were up in an airplane, you'd actually see where this is in relation to it. Just like as if you were up in a high airplane and had really good vision, you would be able to see where the watchtower at Pine Island is in Florida in relation to where Siesta Key Beach is in Florida. They're similar relationship with them. So we will be going to the Siesta Key of Median Earth when we go to the Blue Crystal journey. The important thing that they're going to have us do with this journey today, even though it's going to be a short one, is to meet some friends. And we already have our Buddha collectives, our 6 Buddha team, our team. And always, if you feel so inclined, always bring them with you. And when you're going on, strange grids, grids you're not used to, it's always good to fortify your field. We had some very interesting experiences in Ireland before, some very nice ones and some very wacky ones in certain castles. So just keep your fields amped. These guys will help you to do that. And they have a mission, and they're asking to co-create with you in the places you go, that if they can hang with you, they know what to do with the grids in those areas. And they are assisting in waking up the matrix that connects to where the old Atlantean Ark of the Covenant area, anchoring area used to be. So as you go in your sightseeing and that kind of stuff, realize that all you have to do is be and breathe, if you're breathing the right way, and if you have these things activated in your field, the things that you've been working, for so many years, many of you, to do, just being there and breathing, bring frequencies into the place. This time you're going to have these little buddies, and I call them little buddies because, I'm sure they're a lot more intelligent and awake than I am, but they look kind of like, I'll try to hold this up, let me see, squiggly. Kind of like beans. I don't know if you can see this, but think of kind of like a lima bean. But they're actually, try to imagine a texture of water that holds its form, right? Where, imagine if you had a splash and you had all these little kind of like bean-shaped, kind of sort of akasha-shaped splashes, but then they held that form and then could bounce around and float around and giggle, and they're hilarious, and they can if they want to, if you're bothered by the form they're most comfortable in, which is their pure endoplasmic form. If you prefer hominid, they can do that too. Right? And the name of them are, these are a specialized group of the Aquafari. And we've talked about aqua fairy before. The fairy folk, well, these are the blue fairy folk because they look like, well, they don't look like fairies with wings. They look like water beans. And they're really little, right? Like many little water droplets, but that giggle and chatter and like bounce on you, and they can like come together and make large shapes. Because it's not just water they can make, but it's literally that water matter base. And they are hugely consciousness. They can link with the water matter base anywhere in the cosmos, actually. But this particular group are what they call the main guard of the blue crystal. We're still learning about what purpose this blue crystal has in elemental command, because it is a level of elemental command that I know when they first took me to visit the blue crystal, when the Beloveds first took me there, I realized that it was quite an honor, and I was just kind of like, I don't think I'm ready for this. This is important. Like, don't take me here. I feel like I'm 2 years old, and really dumb. And they're training me for a particular appointment in working with the blue crystal, and I just feel like a total neophyte when it comes to that level of elemental command. But they assured me that somewhere I earned the ability to do that, because somewhere I know what it's about. So like very big and tall, like taller than any skyscraper building you would see. And it is a hexagon-shaped crystal, but running on the vertical, like where you have the points pointing up as opposed to the points pointing horizontally. And it looks like it's coming out of a volcano crater, like, mountain volcano crater, that has lots of that looks like tropical trees and stuff around the base of the mountain, and it does appear as an island that is sitting within, like, a bit of ocean water. So, but the crystal is kind of like big and tall like that. And this amazing shade of blue, if you could imagine a translucent, where it's very, you can see through it, but it's a deep, beautiful blue. It's not like the deep D10 blue-black color at all. It's not indigo either. If you take the color in artist colors, like acrylics, called ultramarine blue, which is, it's just, I don't know how to describe it, ultramarine blue. If you combine that with royal blue, which is a little bit lighter than ultramarine, it's just a very interesting, radiant color, and I don't think I have anything to even point at, except maybe, yeah, this is close, but imagine a translucent crystal. You see that? Yeah. And it looks darker here because it's not translucent, so like that, but kind of like emanating and glowing, so it looks a little bit lighter. And that has to do with the color of this endoplasmic water base. So they call it the endoplasmic firewater crystal. I don't know about the fire part yet. They haven't taught me about that yet. But just do a simple journey. Now, if you've done the journey to Arishma Ta'e before, where you go into that, like that open platform that you can look out over the horizon and stuff, if you're used to going to that place, you can start from there. If you're not, you can start from just where you are, and we'll go into the visualization. But what we're going to do is end up in the air, as if we kind of like popped in through a portal way up in the air above in the atmosphere, and we're going to see it down there, and it's going to look like, at first, like a little blue hexagon shaped like target, right? Like aim here, right? And even though this crystal holds its form, if you poked it, it would go in, like move with your fingers, because it's actually like a water that holds form, and the crystal itself is made out of that as well. And we're going to go down through that from the atmosphere in a projection, and we'll go down into the base, and it goes past the mountain and down under into the core, and that's where we encounter certain things. I think they're going to give us something. Yeah, they just said they're going to give us something that we can take. Okay, they're going to give us a certain arc key, some kind of frequency pattern key to the Ark of the Covenant gates, and the gate sets that has to do with being able to move the Ark. And this goes way back to the 49,000 BC something or other period when they did move it the last time. Okay, and when we meet these little guys, they're going to get us to where we get this key, and carry, just know you have it, like, kind of hang it in your field like an ornament if you want to, or whatever. But sometime, and it might not be tomorrow, sometime during the workshop period, that you will get an urge, this is where I'm supposed to drop that key. It'll just be a feeling. So just hang on to it. And even if it's the last day, just hang on to it. I mean, you might even find, well, I'm at the airport, and you just like happen to walk in a certain way and go, wait a minute, he wants to go there, so it might be, that strange. So you will get this key that is the beginning of the process of, it's almost like unlocking the grids, so you can open the field in which the Ark of the Covenant needs to slide into, basically, because it's the bottom of a tube that's going to slide from Egypt up into and lock into the old grids, the Atlantean grids up here. Okay. I have to just breathe gently for a few moments. And activate the Christ Star vehicle. Now, if you have a good visual of the Arishma Ta'e platform, imagine you go to the edge and you're standing at the edge of it looking out over the horizon. And over there somewhere you can see the little island with the blue crystal sticking out. If you're not used to going to the Arishma Ta'e space, that's okay. We can do the airdrop in. So if you're going to go from Arishma Ta'e, you'll just be projecting over, whereas if you're coming just from where we are here, we'll be literally going up above our heads and then dropping down into that reality field. Okay, so we'll begin the projection together, and first we'll inhale and hold for a moment. And now begin a gentle projection on the exhale from whichever platform you're aiming from. Exhale. If you're coming from just here, go exhale, pushes a version of you up, pushes your Jade body up, and it disappears. Now try to find your Jade eyes, your Jade body eyes, and see the blue crystal, even just the top of it. Try to see the blue hexagon shape, even if that's the only thing you can see. If you can see more of it, great. Now, wherever you're hanging with your Jade body, or if you've already got to the blue crystal, that's okay. What we're going to do is visualize that we're all meeting in our Jade bodies that look very much like us, but with the Christ Star vehicle activated around them and a large orb activated around that. And we're going to meet in a circle around and hovering quite a bit above, like maybe 20 feet above the blue crystal. And what we're going to do is enter together. But first we have to do a circulation, which means if we line up single, like where our Jade bodies are lined up singly in a single circle around the top of the blue crystal, we're going to start moving that circle in a counterclockwise motion around the blue crystal. So we're all kind of like floating, but our circle's starting to move counterclockwise. We're going to notice in a moment or two, and when we notice, what I'll describe in a minute, when we notice this thing with our physical bodies, inhale and hold as if you're inhaling this spark that comes out of the blue crystal. Because in a moment, there's going to be, in response to our circulation of energy above, there's going to be a little like splash upward coming out of the top of the blue crystal, and it's on its plane, and its flat plane on the top of it, and it's going to make a splash, and the splash will break into little splashes, and there'll be one for everyone. And when that's going to happen, I'll let you know when it's going to happen, because it's going to happen in a minute. When I say, okay, it splashes out, just kind of inhale and bring it into the Azure. And it's not doing that yet. It's starting to vibrate. Okay, the circle's going faster. Try to feel the circulation feeling counterclockwise, as if it's moving around your body, as if your Christ Star vehicle is spinning counterclockwise around you. Okay, and it's picking up speed. It sounds juicy. Okay, all right, it's getting ready to go. Oh, all right, there it goes. Inhale. Just imagine that you're bringing that little spark of endoplasm into your Azure, and then drop it down a little bit with the exhale breath to the carinatus seal, just behind the end of the breastbone. Try to feel a sensation that should spread up around your shoulders and stuff from that. You might not, but if you do, I felt it, so I thought you might. Okay, now the circle and our Christ Star vehicles are settling down to a stop, and we're stopping spinning. And now imagine in your Jade body that you're hovering in the air above this beautiful firewater crystal, and it has the plane of its top is just like a quartz crystal grows, where it's like a flat plane, six-sided but flat, and translucent. So we're actually going to just dive in as if we're diving into a swimming pool. And just like inhale, and on the exhale, dive and push down. And as soon as you crest into it, as if you're underwater, but you're actually inside the crystal, you'll notice a current. And the current feels like it's spinning. It's actually a clockwise current. A clockwise current is spinning. And imagine you're kind of like swimming with head down, as if you're going down underwater, but you're actually going down through this crystal. And it's starting to like spin you gently. And so we're all spinning down in like this vortex. And just try to feel the color radiation of this stuff, this endoplasm, It has a very particular feel to it that's quite lovely. If you once you can get yourself in there, like into the space of the meditation, try to feel it as you're spiraling down, and we're going to keep spiraling down for quite a while. At a certain point, the color tones in the crystal, which are kind of like a medium translucent blue, they will begin to change as we crest the place where the crystal enters the mountain crater. And from there, we'll still go down the crystal until we get literally down at Earth's core. So we're going to go underground with the crystal, inside the crystal. Once we crest the crater and start going underground, the light changes and we start to realize that it's self-illuminating, where it's actually lighter and more intense light within the crystal, and it's this beautiful ultramarine blue light that is just radiating. At a certain point, as we're spiraling down, we'll notice the spiral stops, and you just kind of float in there, as if you were floating in very buoyant air water. So just stop for a moment and try to feel with your Jade body hand, and you can also try to feel it here because you might get a sense of the texture on your physical hand as well. Try to feel what this substance is like that your Jade body is hanging out in right now, the endoplasm. There's a little tingle that you can feel on your palms of your Jade body that may translate through to a tingle you can feel here as well. As we're doing this with our Jade bodies and by location, we're also bringing these frequencies directly into our fields. So they're actually surrounding us in our Jade body fields around our physical body as well, in our auric structure, in our light body structures. So what we're going to do now is simply make one more dive and go down to the bottom. And as we dive down, and we'll inhale and then again use the exhale to push the dive downward. Jump down. And this time we'll start to see this, it's almost like a pale yellow, yellow gold light coming up at the center with the blue light around it way down at the bottom. And we're going to aim for that. And just when we see the light, all of a sudden everything gets just really bright, filled with this pale yellowy white light. And we're just going to swim right through that. And as if you're going through a light field and you can't see the crystal around you anymore. And almost like swimming through the light field. And when you get to a certain point in the swimming through the light field, there'll be almost a sense where everything stops, where you just feel absolute ceasing of motion, even atomic motion. It's almost like you're going so fast that you actually slow down. There's a thing that happens in physics that has to do with particle acceleration that has to do with that. So we're hitting this stop barrier, and we're just going to inhale once more and hold for a moment. And then gently breathe our Jade body right through into the center of this bright light. And when we get to the other side of it, it's almost like we can look up and see the underside of where that bright light was shining, but the bright light's not shining down in this area. It's like a beautifully lit compartment that's at the base of the crystal. And it has a lot of other connections, like little doorways that open up off the main crystal that are other crystals that shoot up in different directions. But we're just going to stay in this one. And if we turn our attention to what's hanging, where we're hanging here at the base of this, in the base of this crystal, what is below our feet, we'll see that it looks like a lake or a well of beautiful water, the same color of that amazing ultramarine blue, translucent, and it seems to have flickers of light moving through it, just randomly, like as if it's spontaneously communicating with itself electrically inside of it. Now, we're going to again assemble in a circle down at the base of this crystal around this water. There's enough room to stand or float your Jade bodies before it gets to the water part. And what the beloveds are asking us to do now is just look up in our Jade bodies for a moment and realize that there's a big orb coming down, and that's a collection of the beloveds coming down to assist with this. These, the ones that are coming down, are actually Zayane that we've talked about before. They were we called them the fish people, the Zayane people. They're just here to assist. They're part of our Buddha team. So there's a collective of them that's just hanging there in orb, but they want us to know that there was the Zayane that are there. And what we're going to do is, if we would like to have for the duration of this trip in Ireland, if you would like to have with you a collective of the endoplasmic elemental core guardian group that are associated with the blue crystal, then simply extend the invitation that, sure, I would like you to, come with me, and I will be glad to co-create, Christic grid work with you. Simply take your left hand in your Jade body, and you can do it in the physical too if you want to, and as if you're reaching down and bending down, putting your left hand into this lovely water substance, and try to feel the water substance. It has a very unique feel to it. It doesn't feel like water. It moves like liquid mercury does, but it's not thick in that same way, where it's translucent and transparent. All right? And now, with the intention that you would like to co-create, just inhale and exhale that intention just as an energy signature down your left arm and out your left palm and into the water base. And then gently withdraw your hand and just kind of hang out and wait for a moment. When they did this the first time with me, I jumped. The reason I jumped was because this little family of these little bean-shaped water people came bolting out like a spout, like a water spout. Right? And I was still bent over looking to see, you said they were going to come, where are they? And they all like splat, hit me in the face, like all over. And then they started to chuckle, like, they're all over. So the invitation has been sent, and they will respond momentarily. They're going to do it again. I can feel it's like a rumble way down beneath the water somewhere. And you can feel it like a rumble starting, and it builds frequency, and it's starting to do that. And at some point, they literally come bolting out in the center of this like lake-like area as this big water spout. But they're conscious and they're alive. And if you like fairies in hominid bodies, they can take that shape for you, but they'd still prefer to stay blue, they said. So you can have blue fairies, or you can have blue endoplasmic consciousness, elemental command force, whatever. All right, they're getting ready. And when they do this eruption, because it literally is, it's like a joyous boom, like a geyser comes up out of the center, and they all just kind of break off from the central geyser into their individuation, and come down to the people they follow your signature, to who has left the invitation to come. And they're getting ready to do their geyser effect. Okay, as they're getting ready to do this, let's hold our breath, and we'll exhale. When they pop up, we'll exhale. Okay, it's rumbling. I can feel it coming. All right, all right. Let's exhale. Now they're popping. Try to see the visual on this, because it's quite hilarious. And they pop and they go up, and then they arch, and they all split off into like millions of little drops, bean-shaped drops. And they start dropping like rain on our heads and shoulders. Try to feel the presence of it's literally like big raindrops that have a bit more weight than raindrops. And then they kind of bounce up and take their shape and kind of slosh around. They almost look like they have like, kind of like sticky outy bums on the one side, back sides, and their little chests stick out on the other, but it's just bean shaped. And they're roly-poly kind of beings, and the energy with them is just absolute joy type energy, but absolute brilliance as well. I mean, it's like they probably know all the secrets of the cosmos, but there's just a joy with them. Try to feel them as if they were water drops that splattered on you, right? But now the water drops are getting up and kind of going, stretching into their little bean forms and bouncing around. And some of them are like going and running down, and because they think it's fun to slide down from your shoulder to your knee and that kind of thing. You will have a minimum of a dozen of them, all right? Which would actually be one collective, all right? That's actually one identity. And it chooses to be in its 12 form because it has more fun interacting with itself and you that way. Some of you may have more, and it depends on if they know you from before. If you've been to this place before in other lifetimes, which means you're part of the team of elemental command, of the endoplasmic elemental command team, you would get more, but they would all come in sets of 12. All right, so you'll have a minimum of 12, and they will hang around with you. If you when you go back tonight and like after dinner or whatever, lay down and in your bed, remember that they're here, because they will just like hang as invisible water droplets in your field, and they'll be busy doing their own thing. But if you call them into attention and say, "Hello, I'd like to communicate," or just feel you, or "Hi," could we get to know each other? They will come into your field. And for me, when the first time I met them, I was having a pain in my shoulder, in the back of my shoulder, that was really, really bad. And I started to say, "Okay, hi, I see you." And they were like, "Leave me alone, we're busy." And they all collected and made this like water form thing over the pain in my shoulder. And I could feel it like sinking into the cells in my physical body. And it shifted the pain. And I also passed out, which was interesting. I was just gone. Right, pain's gone. I'm asleep. But they will work with assist with healing and things. But they've wanted to get to interact with us this time to assist in co-creating of the moving of the Ark of the Covenant, because they were part of the teams that were responsible for assisting to create the Ark of the Covenant portal passage in the first place. So we've got our little aqua fairy friends, and they're saying, if you want, we can like make little blue fairies of ourselves and do gymnastics and things if you find that fun. So if you're just like, you forget about the meditation, you're eating or whatever, and all of a sudden you just get this image in your head of these like dancing gymnastic little blue fairies, right, made of water. Right? No, it's them going, "Don't forget, we're still here." Okay. Now, before we leave, we're going to come up out of the blue crystal with our water drop crew, our fairy crew. There's one more thing that has to do with the keys that we're going to be given. Something else is rising out of the lake thing. Let me see what this is. Okay. Where's that? All the little droplets are going and communicating with each other. What? They know what it is. What? I'm asking them, what is it? Because I'm seeing something come up out of the water. Long? Interesting. They look like walking sticks made out of light. That's interesting. I don't know what these are. Okay, they're keys. Okay, yes, you told me they were keys. Okay, I'm having conversation vertically, excuse me. Okay, so these things that look like the walking sticks, what do they call them? They're an Irish shape thing. Shillelagh. Yeah, they have the thing that comes over the top. Is that shillelagh? Yeah. Well, they're shaped like that, but they're just made of light and kind of different colors. Like actually, they all look kind of white with like rainbow stripes flickering through them and seeming to come off them. There's one of them there for each one of us, and and we're still hanging out down there in our Jade bodies. One of these is going to they're literally going to rise together, and one will levitate over to you, and it's kind of like they choose you. I don't know, probably because it has to do with your past relationships with elemental command in relation to the Ark of the Covenant, I have a feeling. But these are keys, and they look like they're the size that would be appropriate for a walking stick for the size of your Jade body in there, which means here they would be like, same size appropriate, but they're going to shrink up when they come to us, so they're like hovering in front of us, and they're going to just go blink and turn into little tiny versions of the same thing. And we can bring them into our field here and hold them for later by simply inhaling them from our Jade bodies. Imagine them, the little shillelagh thing hanging in front of you down there in the blue crystal, and inhale it toward you. And imagine you're cupping it in your palms. And now on the exhale, we're going to all at the same time blow ourselves right out, all the way up out of the blue crystal and back into our seats. So, and now. And as we feel our consciousness settle back into the rest of our consciousness that's in our body here, try to feel a little fuzzy form floating in the center of your clasped palms. If your palms aren't clasped, clasp them now to make that little bubble around. And inside of that, that little shillelagh key is going to, it has materialized itself. There's more to the shillelagh thing. It's not just it gets dropped someplace. It's like a teaching stick. Okay, I don't know. I just got something about the old bards of Atlantis, of Lohas, and teaching sticks. So we'll learn something more about that. But in the meantime, even if you don't feel the little fuzzy thing in the center, it's almost like it's just floating, like a little mustard seed floating in a ball, right, in the palms. Just let it free into your field, and it'll just go, like right into your field and hang there, and you can kind of like move it over if it's not where you want it. Just organize it where you'd like to hold it, and just remember it's there, and we'll come back to that. And meanwhile, try to feel as we go out the aquafairy, water bean people, water drop people. So the one that says, "Don't call me a bean." I'm sorry. No, this one's funny. It's definitely a female president. It just went, "Call me a curvy Akasha." Right? Oh, they're funny. Okay. Yeah. Well, they're going to hang out like on our shoulders and that kind of stuff. And if you find like they may be sliding down our arms, they're going to have fun. These guys, the aquafairy, they always told us would be buddies, our buddies, right? And that they are fun, and it's like having friends, and we can do serious work with friends. So enjoy your dinner this evening. We would like to go, but I've got to get back on the writing and the diagrams, and you've got to go too because you have a bus, so I don't want to make you late. Anyway, have fun and have a lovely dinner, and I hope you enjoy I think they're doing clogging tonight and that kind of stuff at the dinner tonight, right? Traditional dancing. Yes, which is usually pretty cool, traditional Irish dancing. So have fun with your curvy Akasha aquafairy people. And I will see you tomorrow. What time? I will see you for the workshop tomorrow. When you go tomorrow, for the day of sightseeing, it's also day of grid keying, right? Remember that you've got your aquafairy friends with you, and kind of ask them, just for a nudge, or if you have open communication where you can hear them, ask them if there's anything specific that they would like you to do in relation to the grids that you happen to be walking through. And if you don't have open communication verbally, just ask them anyway, telepathically, and just trust your nudges. Like if you get a hunch to go over there or over there, so kind of free flow with it, because it is grid work, but it's also, you get to see neat things. So I hope you have a good day, in your daytime tomorrow, and I will see you tomorrow evening for 8 p.m. Is that the right date? Yes, 8 p.m. Anyway, welcome to Ireland. Have a great dinner, and see you tomorrow. Good night.
Det må ingenting, ja. Det er fri vilje verden vi lever i. Hva er slemmakten?
Sånn deler liksom gruppe 3. Noen vi skal strekke opp på Lighthouse, så andre gruppen går rundt hjørnet til
Which row?
Big one, sticking out.
Okay. Right to the right.
Good. Okay, you want to put on? That's really good. You want to take your glasses off. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Hard to look.
All right.
All right.
Meander on back.
Yeah. I don't think we'll meander.
That would be quite Ja, den tömmen wir nicht. For months, I thought. I'm pretty sure that's the way they used to live.
Look
I
at
have
this
a
face around. This face, yeah.
I just saw it at the same time you did.
And it's sundial.
I think the bird's guardian. Bird's the guardian.
Yeah, I'm just having coffee.
Thank you for your patience. It's another one of those workshops that just run on their own guardian time. But I hope you had a really cool day checking out the sites and doing your grid drops and things like that today. And for this evening, what I just got done with is they gave me about 10 more pages that goes into summary too. Now it's up to 41 pages, I think. But the reason they gave it to me is it's going to be released, once we release, whenever we get to release this summary, if it stops growing. But it's because it's the information that they wanted to bring to you tonight first. So even though this information is going to go out, there are certain excerpts they would like me to read from this that have to do with the subject matter that we're going to be covering. And I'd like to put this up, honey, if we could. Okay. I wish I had a paper copy of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just a basic notes to myself, really, on what we're going to cover tonight, what the readings will be about, and after we do the pieces of readings, we'll read and then we'll talk about the things. And after we're done with the readings, then we will look at some graphs that begin to help us understand where and what the encryption lattice is. And at the end of this evening, morning, whatever it's called, we will have technique 2, because we did the intro technique 1, in the orientation. So we'll be doing a bit longer technique. And I do believe there's going to be 6 techniques by the time the workshop is done. So there's 2 coming in tomorrow. As far as tomorrow, just because of the amount of work I'm going to have to do between now and then, whenever we get out of here, and I've been trying to get a nap, even a half hour, since like about noon, because I was up before dawn, and that didn't work. So I'm going to have to push the hours back tomorrow night. So it's going to be a late night, as opposed to starting at 1 in the afternoon. We'll probably start maybe around 7, like right after dinner type thing, and just move through to there. So you have a warning so you can sleep in the daytime if you can, and that kind of thing. But, because I have to get some sleep somewhere, or I'll just fall over. Anyway, this is just a bit of a summary of the things that I would like to cover, that we're going to cover in the readings, and then talk a bit more about when we're finished with the readings. The most important things we'll talk about are the encryption lattices, but these subjects go down. There's a couple little headings under each of the main subjects. This gets really interesting. There's one question that I think has like 8 pages of answer, right? These are the things that will go out on, that are going to go out as part of the first installment of their official disclosure, but it's going to be disclosed to you first. And I think I'm looking at this stuff and I'm going, oh my God, that's going out for entry-level people? You got to be kidding. But anyway, you will get it first, and I think you'll see by the end of it. There's been a bunch of questions, particularly my infamous question to myself and the beloveds, but what's it going to look like? I've been asking that for 10 years, and getting little bits of answers here and there. In the section where we look at the immediate questions and answers, this is about 2012 and moving up to 2012 and what that's about. And when they gave me this information, it helped me, because it helped give me clarity about where is this going, what is going on, what's all the hype with 2012. I understood some things about it, but nothing like when we get down with the readings that we'll understand. And we'll be able to understand these things together. And in doing that, we will then be able to use that as a platform to understand the grid work that we're going to be doing in this workshop, and also the beginnings of the personal healing work that we will do in this workshop. Because we are, as I suspected, going to begin the early activation of the Silver Seed Awakening for the Aquafarian Shield. And this group here will be the first to anchor those frequencies. It won't be occurring until 2012 on the planetary level, where it's available to everyone. So right now it's just, with the Aquafarian Shield. There's still a lot of things that have to do with whatever tomorrow's workshops are going to be about. I know pieces of that. I have a feeling it has to do with some of the things that were in summary number 1 that's not finished yet. It's only at 16 or 20 pages so far. By tomorrow night it may double, I don't know. But tonight we're going to just do some of the readings and then look at some of the structure and the diagrams that we've already had, but we've added bits too, so you can see what are these encryption lattices and why are they important. The why are they important will become answered as we read through this and we see the role that they play, first understanding a bit of what they are, and then we'll see the visuals on where they're located in the anatomy. And the technique that we'll be doing at the end of this evening is this one. It's called the Lotus Bud Vehicle. It is an upgrade on the Christ-Star vehicle, actually, and it's a neat. They took me through it quickly, the journey that goes with it. So we'll beginning with there, and then there's two other ones I haven't named yet, but these will be happening. That was the first one. These two will be happening tomorrow, evening sometime, and then there will be 2 more activations. So I will just get on with the reading, and it's kind of funny. There's only a little bit to read, right? Every place you see a green sticky, that's a page that needs to be covered. There's only 41 pages there. So anyway, and when this comes out, what you'll be hearing, this will be like out of context of the entire summary as it goes. A bunch of it in the beginning just has to do with, because the title of Introductory Topic Summary 2 that's going on the website is called simply Contemporary Origins and Evolution of the MCEO Teachings. Oh, God. So we just started with little bits of stuff that's already known, for people who are just coming into the website, what's this stuff? And then it goes into stuff that's unbelievable. I will read some of the things first. Under the title, there's this little includes box, and it gives the subtitles. And this is what's contained within this summary of only the recent work, the contemporary work. This isn't the historical summary. The historical summary is in summary 1, right? So we've got, and we're not going to cover all of this tonight. We're just going to cover the significant parts that have to do with that information on the board up there. But the subtopics of introductory topic summary 2, just pardon me, I'm a little bit tired, so I have to focus back into reading on paper instead of being glued to the computer, which is an eye shift thing. Okay, it said includes. The first thing, simple stuff. The contemporary MCEO Speaker 1 contract just talks about a little bit of, how I got involved with the work and that kind of stuff, where it came from this time around. It talks about Cathar Healing, Ascension Cycles, Earth's Templar, and Azurite Press travel tours, just to give people a rundown. Then elements of the MCEO teachings, and ancient false ascension science. Here we go. That's when they took it off the plot. I was thinking a couple-page summary. No. All right, so it started there, where it's elements of the MCEO teachings and ancient false ascension sciences. The next subheading after that is Ancient Deception, The Fall of Atlantis, a comparative review of death science paradigms. Oh boy. That's when we get into comparing certain things about what they call the Bloom of Doom. That's the ancient name for it, actually, in English translation. The technologies involved with that. And we start comparing like the crystal spiral to the Fibonacci spiral and that kind of stuff, just for layman's terms. I'm going, oh boy. All right, now I got even better after that. And the end of that one is, wait a minute, Fall of Atlantis, Death Science Paradigms. Oh, the next one is Free Will Choice, It's All True, the Encryption Lattice, and the Paths of Rise and Fall. So then we get into that information, and we'll be covering pieces of that. And let's see, the next one is The Hidden Human Dilemma. And that part of that subtitle is Hidden Human Dilemma, Channels, Earth Extinctions, 2012, and the Planetary Encryption Lattice. Oh boy. We won't be doing the part on channels tonight, but we'll be taking excerpts from The Hidden Human Dilemma, because that's the most important thing that we need to understand, particularly since we have been working, our groups have been working with the grid work on this planet for 10 years at this point. So, certain things about what this is about, where it's going, what's it going to look like, are most important, for us before we worry about, some interesting thing about what's happening with the channels on the planet and that kind of stuff. So we'll deal with the Hidden Human Dilemma and the Earth Extinctions and the 2012 and the Planetary Encryption Lattice. And then the next subheading is The Big Game, the 2012 show, Pertinent Questions, and that's the one where one question had 8 pages or something of answers, right? And the Silver Seed Awakening. And then there's a final section in that that's called Wise Choices, Symbol Clues, and Salvaging the Sacred, which we will probably touch on some of before the entire workshop program is done, before we go home. But we won't be touching on tonight. So they're just some of the things that are covered in this introductory topic summary 2. And just imagine being a new person who's just like heard something that sounded interesting on the radio interview and comes and clicks on this. Just when you start hearing some of the content, you'll probably chuckle. I'm kind of going, oh God. I'm going, Flips, are you sure you want to do this? And they said, that's why it's called official disclosure. Right? It's like, okay. Now, let's see. There we go. Let me get to my next little green sticky. In the first bit, we'll talk a little bit about just what exactly is an encryption lattice. Because we know that we have the basic template of the Cathara grid and the structure is built on that. But this is a structure that's part of the light body, actually. And it's connected to all those things, of course, but it's a specific aspect of it. It doesn't go into light body here, but it tells you a little bit about what it is. Let's see, where does that come in? Right there. So I will read to you in context how the Beloveds worked it with me. And the way this is written is interesting. It's like it's me writing it, but they come in sometimes and weave it through, and they've done this for a step down. Because when you just read something and it's direct transmission from the Beloveds with, it's a different frequency, like the Voyagers books. That's like, transmitting matrix, whatever, speaker number, whatever name is, step down, whatever. And it's a different frequency, and it's too high for, making it so more people can understand what's being talked about. So sometimes they will just move the information through me as I am writing something, and then it just kind of goes crazy on the keyboard. And oh, okay. But so when you hear it, it's not written like the Voyagers books in the sense of, this is so and so from whatever star system, that kind of thing. It's written as if I'm speaking to you or to the person who's reading it. And, well, most of it is. I think there's a little bit of where you can feel the shift, but pretty much starts with that. So we'll start with this one section. Sorry. So far, it's on page 13 as far as printout, but I'm not sure if by the time it gets on the website, if that will still be the page number, because they sometimes shift, right? So for now, it's on page 13. But it's under the heading of Free Will Choice. It's all true, the encryption lattice, and the paths of rise and fall. So this gives us a general parameter of what all those things mean. They've already gone into talking about, before this, the Fibonacci spiral and those kind of things, where they did a comparative, just a simple one, even if you've never heard of these paradigms before coming in on the website, you would still be able to get the gist of what's being said in the comparisons. So they've moved from that and that information into this next level of information. Okay. And through this, we'll find out a bit about encryption lattices. They said, okay, though the cosmos allows and finds value in all things, and it's all good / God, right, as the New Age sayings tell us, and with which the MCEO perspectively agrees, we actually agree with those statements, it is also all good God to learn to discern between the various paths of spiritual awakening, if one hopes to have any conscious influence at all over the direction of personal evolution. Where precisely does each spiritual path lead is a question worth asking. In the MCEO CDT plate dispensations, the answer to this question is answered in precise detail, unlike the lofty but vacuous explanations offered in other paradigms. And yes, eventually all paths return to source, but another good question to ask is, what will the experiential road between here and source look like? For therein lies the core reason for discernment in choosing a life path, be it spiritual or otherwise. Now, the cosmos runs by certain immutable natural laws that will exist and experientially apply whether or not one chooses to believe in them. One such cosmic law is that of cause and effect. Action and consequence to action, or the law of reciprocity. What goes around comes around, to put it simply. we will have consequence to action for each action we choose to take. And if we happen to choose an evolutionary path built upon fundamentals of energy inherent to the death sciences, which they had talked about before previously, and that has to do with the Bloom of Doom paradigm and the Metatronic sciences. Okay, so inherent to the death sciences, path of finite life and space dust return, we will live the experiential energetic consequence of that choice. If we choose not to choose a path of conscious evolutionary direction and simply say, as the song says, sha-la-la-la-la, live for today, that one, I can't sing right now, right? Our not choosing still remains a choice. And in the choice of no choice, we will be at the mercy of the energetic consequence that emerges through the field of mass action surrounding us in the external environment. So if we choose not to choose and just don't bother ourselves with it, it'll be chosen for us by what's called dominant quantum, where the quantum of the collective is stronger than your own little one. And if you're not working directly, and focusing your energy in specific ways, you'll just get dragged along with whatever the species field is in the planetary field. All right, let's see. Okay. In our current societies, we have a wealth of happy affirmative New Age jargon with which we could blissfully dance ourselves into unknowing oblivion for several lifetimes to come. But behind the jargon, there are real energetic realities taking place, and it is through the response to those underlying energetic realities that we will meet with the reality of experiential energetic consequence. Now they jump a paragraph here to stay on point here. Here's where we get into encryption lattices. The reality in core frequency vibration of a being, thought, idea, emotion, matter form, or any manifest thing represents what is called the core radiation encryption. This core truth in frequency vibration is in actuality the frequency vibration of the core energy radiation signature held within the morphogenetic field template lattice upon which the organization of the multidimensional form of any manifest thing is structured. The morphogenetic field template is referred to as a lattice because it is a constantly fluctuating, flowing field of intricate, interwoven geometrical forms and patterns made of minute points of radiation that exists within, behind, and surrounding the matter form that manifests upon it. In terms of this core radiation encryption lattice, even invisible phenomena such as thoughts, ideas, and emotions are literal manifest things possessing tangible form, structure, matter expression, and a core encryption lattice somewhere within the multidimensional spectrum. The cumulative sum of the frequency vibration of the core encryption lattice at any given moment in time is called the base pulse rhythm, or BPR. It is the BPR of the morphogenetic field encryption lattice that draws a manifest form into the cumulative energetic consequence corresponding to the BPR of its energetic lattice. That means if you just have thoughts, and I'm going to do all my happy thoughts, and I'm not going to focus on anything but my happy thoughts, that will be part of your BPR, of your encryption lattice. But what are your atoms doing? Do you know? Because if what is happening on the atomic level, say through psychotronics that are being beamed through the planet directly aimed at our bodies, it won't matter how many happy thoughts you think. It's still going to go into an alignment that you are not choosing. And this is why they're bringing the encryption lattices to our attention. Okay, now, the cosmic law of cause and effect expresses within ascension systems as the law of reciprocal attraction, through which the encryption lattice of a manifest form is drawn into reciprocal or mutual relationship with its corresponding energetic consequence. It is the law of co-resonant harmonic alignment, which simply means that the specific core frequency vibration, or BPR, of a matter form's encryption lattice will draw that matter form into relationship with other matter forms that have a correspondingly similar encryption lattice and BPR. Now, from here, they go into a little bit about the paths of rise and fall, because that law of co-resonant harmonic alignment applies to ascension systems, but it works a bit differently in fall systems. And right now, we're in a blended system. All right, so now in the path, in the re-evolutionary path of accretion or ascension, it's the re-evolutionary path where we're re-evolving and accreting ourselves back into our wholeness, right? In the re-evolutionary path of accretion or ascension, like encryption attracts like encryption, and opposite polarities attract. So we still have the opposite electrical polarities attracting, but underneath that, like encryption attracts like encryption. Okay, through co-resonant harmonic alignment of common BPR core frequency vibration between the morphogenetic field encryption lattice of a manifest form and the encryption lattice of the greater unified field around us. Because of this dynamic, a manifest individual can use free will to create its own reality because its personal encryption lattice is connected to the larger encryption lattice of the greater unified field through an organic common neutral field through which energy openly circulates in mutually appropriate proportions, allowing for perpetual quantum exchange and self-regeneration between the personal encryption lattice and unified field encryption lattice. Through this organic common neutral field, the individual can consciously direct the BPR and geometrical mathematical contours of the personal morphogenetic field encryption lattice within a perpetual co-resonant relationship of mutual energy exchange, which means the unified field isn't dragging you around because there's this neutral space where your encryption field meets, and this has to do with the physics of the energy, and where you meet with the unified field, you still have free will choice where whatever the dominant pattern in the immediate unified field is, like say your planetary field, will not drag you around. You can still change your encryption lattice in relation to that. And this operates differently in fall systems. All right. Through the common neutral field, the field of the individual remains connected to, but not controlled by, the greater quantum unified field encryption lattice. Thus, the individual shares a perpetual reciprocally cooperative relationship with the living unified field. In ascension systems, for every action, there is a reciprocally appropriate reaction. In ascension systems, the cosmic law of cause and effect expresses as the eternal law of reciprocity or mutuality, which leads to progressive identity accretion into wholeness and eventual self-transfiguration into eternal life consciousness through the dynamics of stardust return in Christ star ascension. All right, so stardust is literally when we turn ourselves into particulates in the ascension process. They are living particulates, which is a very different process than what happens in fall systems. Now, in the de-evolutionary path of annihilation, or fall. All right, so we had re-evolutionary path of accretion coming together in wholeness. Now the opposite of that is the de-evolutionary path of annihilation or fall. And this is interesting. They're trying to put this in a simple way where it takes it out of the good versus evil framework, all of that, so people coming in can have a basic understanding of why we differentiate between certain teachings, why we need to look at those things. So in the de-evolutionary path of annihilation or fall, opposite encryptions and opposite polarities attract. Now, in the natural systems, opposite polarities attract, but like encryptions attract. That is changed in the de-evolutionary fall paths, where you have opposite encryptions and opposite polarities attract. Okay? And they attract through adhesive disharmonic alignment of opposite BPR core frequency vibration between the morphogenetic field encryption lattice of a manifest form and the encryption lattice of a greater quantum quarantine field. So this is different. If you literally, when you print these out, because you can print these out once they're posted, you can just look at each sentence like one by one. Okay, it said that up on the, for the fall, and this one, one on the rise, one on the fall, and you can see the differences more easily. Because a lot of times what they will do when they're bringing these type of things through, they will give me the sentence structure for the top one, then they'll have me copy it, and then they'll just change the words to show its opposite, so it still has the flow where you can understand which parts correspond with which parts between the rise and the fall, for example. Okay, so let's see. Manifest form, greater quantum field. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, I'll read that line over again just because the next one refers right back to it. Okay, so in the de-evolutionary path, opposite encryptions and polarities attract through adhesive disharmonic alignment as opposed to the co-resonant harmonic alignment of BPRs. It's actually adhesive. They stick together. Disharmonic alignment, they're almost like syncopated alignment, part reverse, part forward, and where it creates an unnatural bond. So adhesive disharmonic alignment of opposite BPR core frequency vibration between the morphogenetic field encryption lattice of a manifest form and the encryption lattice of a greater quantum quarantine field, such as a black hole system, where the relationship between an individual in the living systems is with literally the entire cosmos, the energy structure of the entire cosmos, where in false systems they are quarantine systems, black hole systems that are cut off from the natural flow and circulation of the primal life force currents and things. So there it is a smaller quantum that the individual is interacting with as its unified field. Right? Because of this dynamic, a manifest individual has no free will. Its personal encryption lattice is adhered to the larger encryption lattice of the greater quantum quarantine field by an inorganic static bond through which energy cannot openly circulate. So this is instead of that neutral field that allows for that free will, or where you can move your own encryption around, this is you're actually stuck on a larger one that will control your encryption for you. Okay, so he is here to the larger encryption lattice of greater quantum quarantine field by an inorganic static bond through which energy cannot openly circulate, but rather remains in an inorganic state of perpetual counterforce tension between the individual encryption lattice and the quarantine field encryption lattice. So there's actually an unnatural counterforce tension, a pull. One's trying to pull one way, one's trying to pull the other, but the larger quantum one will always win, and that will be the larger field that the individual is stuck within. Through this inorganic field of counterforce tension, the field of greater quantum to which the individual is bonded will control and direct by quantum dominance the contours and BPR of the personal encryption lattice. Thus, the individual cannot consciously direct the BPR and geometrical mathematical contours of the personal morphogenetic field encryption lattice, as it can only respond in subjugate service to the encryption lattice of the greater quantum field to which it is adhered. In false systems, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And that's what science here tells us is the way it is everywhere. It isn't. In natural systems, it's a reciprocally appropriate reaction as opposed to equal and opposite. In simple terms, equal and opposite reaction gives you if somebody hits you, you hit them back. Right? I mean, simple as that. And that's usually not the right thing to do. Right? So, but it goes into the laws of physics and how they apply. Okay? Right? In false systems, the cosmic law of cause and effect expresses as the finite law of polarity competition, where in the eternal life systems, cause and effect expresses as the eternal law of reciprocity or mutuality. In the finite systems, in the false systems, it's the finite law of polarity competition, which leads to progressive identity fragmentation and eventual self-annihilation through the dynamics of space dust return in what's called Death Star implosion. We'll learn more about what the Death Star is. Okay. Contemporary Earth is presently a blended system with over 66% of its encryption lattice in false system BPR alignment. So, this becomes a problem when we hit 2012, as we will find out. Now, in regard to the sacred sciences of ascension systems and the death sciences of false systems, the MCEO freedom teachings and the guardians are not interested in proving which is right or which is wrong. From the MCEO perspective, there is no polarity drama between the two viewpoints and the reality systems they form. There's an interesting perspective on how to look at the false system and rise system, concept. Sorry. Both viewpoints are known as the truth. this is where it's all true, are known as the truth within the unified big picture of eternity. These sacred ascension sciences contained within the ancient MCEO CDD plate teachings represent a record of the truth corresponding to the re-evolutionary path of genuine eternal life ascension. This truth is imbued within the encryption lattice and demonstrated throughout the structures, mathematics, processes, and dynamics inherent to every ascension system and for which the MCEO paradigm stands. So literally within all the structures that we've taught about, the light body structures, the spirit body structures, and all the processes that we've taught that go with that anatomy, that literally the encryption that information holds, because remember, every thought, every idea has an encryption pattern underneath it. All of the information that we have been taught from the CDD plates holds the encryption of ascension, the ascension encryption in its core lattice. Now, the Metatronic death sciences contained within the ancient Bloom of Doom teachings represent a record of the truth corresponding to the de-evolutionary path of genuine finite life expansion. So they are both true in correspondence to what they create. All right? So that is true too. The death science teachings are true in corresponding to the de-evolutionary path of genuine finite life finite life expansion. So finite life expansion is actually what it creates in the fall systems. It actually creates a perpetually expanding universe that eventually self-destructs. All right, and that's what science is telling us is happening, in our universe out there. So these are what they're saying is both perspectives are true. They're completely true in relation to what they create. Okay? All right. Now, just like the truth of the ascension sciences are imbued within the mathematics, the sacred geometries and things that we teach, well, the same applies to the geometries and things that are used in the death sciences, as they call them. So this truth of fall is imbued within and demonstrated throughout the structures, mathematics, processes, and dynamics inherent to every fall system and for which the Bloom of Doom paradigm stands. So literally, both are true in relation to what they create. So it's like, get over the good versus evil drama and all that polarity. In the larger picture, they both exist as truth in relation to what is created through them and what they stand for. And the core truth would be the encryption that is literally underneath them. Right? Thus, the contradictory perspectives are both absolutely true in relation to the realities of energetic consequence each respectively creates and embodies, as they coexist as part of the isness within the unified big picture reality of cosmic eternity. So they are both part of the cosmic truth, part of the isness of the reality. Both perspectives are true in relation to their own energetic objective and false in relation to the objectives of the other. So what's our truths of ascension would be considered false by those who are choosing fall path, and vice versa, right? The greatest difference between these realities, aside from the quality of evolutionary experience within them, is that, like the eternal life cosmos, ascension systems are eternal and represent a path of source return through the innocent knowing of stardust wholeness, whereas unlike the eternal cosmos, false systems are finite and represent a path of source return through innocent unknowing of space dust fragmentation. So it is literally as simple as that. It's not worth fighting over whose gods are better and all that kind of silly nonsense that most of the planet is stuck in right now. It comes down to sacred physics and what is the reality that is taking place. And as long as we have the division between spirit and science paradigms, where you have religions and you have sciences and they always disagree with each other, they're both missing the point. Because ascension doesn't happen without the unification of those two things. Okay, let's see. I like this saying. That which is eternal remains eternal, and that which is finite eventually self-destructs, returning to its source as undifferentiated units of consciousness. The God Source conscious unified field allows for the expression of both perspectives through application of the gift of free will, and each expression will have its corresponding experiential consequence. All beings and things were originally manifest from the common eternal God Source conscious unified field through the eternal dynamics of sacred science, and all were equally imbued with the birthright of ascension and the gift of free will choice. The eternal cosmos, this is interesting, the eternal cosmos does not require false systems in order to achieve and maintain its balance, which means that even if nobody in the entire cosmos chose to do anything that broke any of the organic natural physics laws, and there were no false systems, the natural living systems are not dependent on the presence of false systems to balance the polarities, which is an argument I've heard in various spots. Oh, well, you know, the good guys couldn't do what they're doing if it weren't for the bad guys. That's not true. It's just not true. It was the only reason the concept of false systems were allowed was so free will choice would have free reign. And the only thing that tempers free will choice, it's not God, pointing a finger and zapping you with a lightning bolt. You zap yourself with a lightning bolt because you will get consequence energetically to what energetic things you put out. And it's as simple as that, where it just takes the whole understanding of how the universe works out of the polarity drama where everybody is nitpicking at each other, nobody agrees, and that kind of thing, where you can actually get an understanding of how it works so you can make better choices. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Source simply allowed for the potentiality of false systems as a means for expression of free will choice. The eternal cosmic laws of multidimensional physics were created by Source to serve as an organic moderator to free will choice through the dynamics of cause, effect, and consequence. And it is through the dynamics inherent to these cosmic laws that eternal living balance is perpetually maintained with or without the presence of false systems. So even if they all went away and everything got healed, it would still work. We'd still have materialization, manifestation, and we'd probably have a lot of other things to do with our time instead of trying to rescue falling systems. The question over which path is right or which path is wrong simply comes down to choosing the energetic truth that most suits you and your encryption lattice. The energetic consequence and experiential outpicture of that chosen truth will be yours, whatever you decide. The reality of who and what you are is the energetic truth in frequency vibration held with your encryption lattice. In Ascension Systems, free will is the tool we use to create our own personal evolutionary destiny within the preordained framework of the cosmic unified field. So life is not predestined. There is a preordained framework that exists, and within that framework we have complete free will. And the only thing that tempers that is how energy works, as far as physics works, and that is how we get our consequence. All right. With a little help sometimes from cosmic fallen ones who like to really tip systems on their side and their ear, like we have right now. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we have free will is the tool we use to create our own reality within the preordained framework of the cosmic unified field through conscious direction of the contours and BPR, cumulative core frequency vibration, of our personal encryption lattice. Back to the encryption lattice again. Must be important, whatever it is. Because it seems like we've worked with all sorts of levels of our anatomy and progressively healed them and got them up so we could go to the next level of healing. And now we're getting into the core program set that literally floats around in our fields, changes from second to second, nanosecond to nanosecond probably, with every thought we think, and also with every image we hold, with every photograph we see, with every song we hear, with everything that gets beamed through the planetary field. So there is this level, and it has to do with our biomagnetic fields. Just like on a planetary level, it has to do with the geomagnetic field. And that is what is, right now, what is happening with the planetary geomagnetic field, that we get a micro reflection of in our bodies, is it is 66% Metatronic at this point, and it's going to go into what they call the 55 spin activation in 2012, which is a definite problem for the life field on the planet. Okay, anyway, in fall systems, the personal power of free will choice and control of the personal encryption lattice is progressively subjugated to the greater quantum power of the encryption lattice of the environmental collective. And that is what is happening to most people and life forms on this planet. All right, there are things happening that are so huge, most people don't even know such things exist in the planetary fields themselves. And these things will directly, progressively take control of the individual encryption lattices of persons, which means progressively people will lose free will choice in relation to their evolutionary destiny. And what's sad about it is they won't even know it's happening. Well, not that they do now either, the general populations. So the reason the beloveds are bringing this information, even at this level out, is to give at least one level a step down. There'll be simpler ones after this too. But it's like last call, people, because 2012 is going to happen, and some fascinating things and horrifying things are going to happen during that period. Could be a lot worse, though. We're not going to roll, so this is really good. Excuse me. Now we'll go on to the next bit. Let me skip a little bit there and then take it into another section. And this one's under the heading, the subheading, that's called The Human Dilemma. And the whole heading is called Human Dilemma Channels Earth Extinctions 2012 and the Planetary Encryption Lattice. All right, so they're not going to read the whole thing on this. We won't talk about the channels tonight or any of that. That'll be there, for when it's posted. Let's see. We'll bring it back to encryption lattices. They mentioned a little bit in here, encryption lattices. It says, when the events of history and contemporary times are viewed with an understanding of the function of encryption lattices and their direct role in creating evolutionary path alignments. Through the reality of BPR co-resonance, it can be understood that specific mass beliefs create corresponding specific contours and geometrical mathematical patterns within the collective species encryption lattice, and resultantly within the planetary encryption lattice, all of which directly affects the core BPR alignment of the planet and thus the planet's evolutionary path alignment. So look at what we're being beamed with at this point. We've got Nostradamus doing it. We've got the Bible doing it. Everybody's trying to. The Mayans are doing it. As far as, it's going to be, it's the end times, scenarios. We're getting this beamed on TV shows all over the place at this point. It's big hype, and they're going to continue. That's going to be hyped even more because there are certain forces that are indeed trying to make that occur. And by taking a collective of people and convincing them a certain thing is true, even if it isn't, you still create an energy signature that holds that reality in truth, and that truth will line up with one or the other systems of truth. It will either take you toward fall or take you toward rise. And in believing in that particular scenario, and there's a lot of people who do, both in science and spirituality paradigms, they are literally aligning their personal encryption matrix with the fall system. We'll find out more about what 2012 is about as we go on, and it's kind of mind-blowing actually. As they were giving it to me, oh my god. Right. And it did explain one thing. I always wondered what happens after the 13th breath in a certain bloom of doom paradigm.
Isn't it perhaps the 17th?
Might be the 17th. Okay, whatever it is. Anyway, we get a clue as what happens after it activates to 55. And oh boy, little magical vehicle that is. Take you straight to hell. Anyway.
What did you say?
It's a little magical vehicle. Let's take you straight to Hades.
Oh, right.
Okay, now they're going to move into, as we talked about encryptions and rise and fall paths and alignments with them through our core encryption in this encryption lattice, lining up with either fall path or rise path. And then we talked a little bit just about the mass beliefs and your own personal beliefs and how they affect what the dominant quantum will be in the planetary encryption field or in encryption lattice. Now, they're going to move into what are called the 5 mass extinction events. They're going to jump here a bit. There's not too much in between, actually. I think a page, right? That, it gets into the channels a bit there. We don't really need to cover that tonight. You can, read it in context later. But they want to get into the mass extinction bits because this will bring us into understanding some of the things that are going on on the planet now that we are moving toward 2012, so we can get to the most important stuff, which is an answer to some very interesting questions that once you know certain things, you definitely, how did they word it? They worded it as it begs a host of questions, yeah, that they can finally start answering. So we will get through this part. So the next part they're going to talk about are the 5 mass extinction events that have historically occurred on Earth. One approximately 446 million years ago, one about 364 million years ago, one about 252 million years ago, which was the largest, one about 200 million years ago called the TJ event, and one about 65 million years ago called the KT event, which is one where all the dinosaurs went elsewhere. These were not happenstance occurrences that resulted from organic environmental conditions. These events were deliberately and specifically purposed extermination events, orchestrated by competing Illuminati Elder Race ET groups as part of their long-running battle over Earth Templar Stargate Dominion. All of these extermination events took place prior to angelic human seeding 1, 25 million years ago. And on this planet, and when on parallel Earth, it was 250 million years ago, but we've only been on this side for 25 million. And all were created, all those events were created in order to change the mathematical geometrical patterns of Earth's core encryption lattice morphogenetic field. So you'll wipe species out that hold certain vibrations, and it changes the planetary encryption lattice, right? And so literally, these were done in order to get control or try to control the coding of the encryption lattice by removing the encryption lattices of undesired life forms from the encryption lattice of Earth's collective life field. All right, so those events were created on purpose specifically to do that. It was all about the Templar getting control of Earth's stargates, and we'll find out later why they're so important to them. All right, we know a little bit from what we learned so far, but it gets even better. The technologies by which such enormous effects of these, like these extinctions, can be generated are the product of Bloom of Doom Metatronic death science applications. During the Atlantean periods of 13,400 BC, about 15,000 years ago, and 10,948 BC, about 13,000 years ago, these pre-ancient Metatronic death science technologies were once again slowly but progressively reawakened to serve an instrumental role in the Illuminati Master Plan agenda. And this is why they're going here, because the Master Plan agenda has to do with 2012, right? And then they have a little bit on in this particular writing, because it's a summary. There's little, like, in parentheses things of you can find more information on this here, 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 and here, and here, like what books, what workshops, that kind of stuff. So I'll skip that part. Then, so in contemporary times, all humans, both angelic and Illuminati alike, share a common human dilemma, as together we are facing a rapidly approaching appointment with destiny, during which the evolutionary potentials of humankind will be finally determined. Presently, both the great white hope of enlightenment that the New Age movement was intended to become, and the traditional brotherhoods of religion and science that this great white otherhood was planning to assimilate, are together wandering blindly toward a collective destiny where they will have little conscious choice as to the nature of global events in which they will become progressively entrenched. Currently, both the traditional and the New Age collectives are unknowingly becoming, to quote an earlier passage. Now, this passage that is, I pulled it from earlier, where they talked about things that happened in history, and they talked about the fall of Atlantis and what happened in Atlantis. And this was said in relation to that historical period. And they're pulling it up because it's happening exactly now. They said, okay, to quote an earlier passage, a massive metatronically coded biological electromagnetic human quanta, which is how the Illuminati look at humans, who perform specific spiritual energy rituals at various key sacred site locations of Earth's Templar, during, and it said, and they were talking about a different period, but during all important periods of, they didn't call them ascension cycles yet because they hadn't revealed those words yet, but they're saying here, during this all-important period of Earth's stellar activation cycle, right? The passage continues with, this process of invasion from within worked relatively well in fulfilling the Illuminati small-scale agendas of the ancient Atlantean period, culminating in fall by design of Atlantean culture, and resulted cataclysmic destruction of the territories of Atlantis. These small Illuminati victories of Atlantis represented baby steps in the fulfillment of a much larger Illuminati master plan, to which these small steps were intended to lead. And then here it went, sound familiar? Because that's what we had talked about before in the other context of the history, right? It said, yes, again, once again, Atlantis is rising to repeat its ugly history all over again. But this time, it's the final conflict drama, and the final big game is on. Excuse me. Okay. The baby steps of the ancient Atlantean Illuminati victories have now become the giant steps of an invisible Illuminati elder, Leviathan Goliath. The Illuminati elders, and when I say Illuminati elders, we're talking about the off-planet ones, the ET and other dimensional ones, not just their children, which are the Illuminati humans. They're part human, the ones on planet, right? At least on the outside, you know. But some of them. There's some that are very still human. They just, you know, we all have a bit of the Illuminati codes with us for now. But there are some serious reptilians hanging out in human form. Yeah, and some others too. Anyway, these were the baby steps at Atlantis that were meant to lead up to now. And now these are giant steps of the invisible, because people don't realize it's happening, Illuminati Elder Leviathan Goliath. The Illuminati elders are dedicated, as they have been since long before Atlantis, to their prime directive of seizing dominion of Earth's stargates through control of the planetary encryption lattice and geomagnetic field. The only reason that the angelic human lineage was permitted to survive, and the only reason the Illuminati human races were so painstakingly cultivated, was to enable the off-planet Illuminati elder races direct bioelectronic access to Earth's stargates during a stellar activation cycle. In the view of the Illuminati elder races, once bioelectronic stargate access was accomplished and Earth's stargates were opened on a dominant Metatronic code through the presence of both the angelic humans, who had certain key codes that they couldn't interbreed in, and the Illuminati human genetic lines, then both Earth human gene lines, both Illuminati and Earth human, will have served their purposes and become redundant. They were planning to get rid of us all as soon as we got the gates open. And that goes for the Illuminati ones too. The point of species redundancy within the prime objective of the Illuminati master plan is the point at which Earth's stargates would open under Metatronic dominance during a stellar activation cycle. This point has been scheduled by the Illuminati elders for about 13,000 years to occur between the end of 2012 AD and the beginning of 2013 AD. And at this point, the Illuminati elders have long intended to orchestrate the sixth and last Earth extinction through rapid shift of Earth's geomagnetic poles. Excuse me, I have a drink here. Okay. Next section is called The Big Game, the show, Pertinent Questions, and the Silver Seed Awakening.
Quite quiet. Quiet.
It's very quiet, I noticed. Okay. And here it's kind of funny. I tend to not word things this way, so this is one of those where the beloveds kind of came through like they do sometimes in the Voyagers, but it still seems like, well, it's kind of us. And they said, "Dear people, the BPR," right? Like, you know, people out there on planet Earth, right? The BPR showdown is on. We are going to, are we going to pull up a chair, grab a bowl of popcorn, and just sit, just watch the show unfold? Or are we going to make an effort to achieve some conscious control over our personal evolutionary destinies? The choice is fully up to each individual, and the MCEO humbly respects whatever your free will choice might be. Sadly, most human populations do not even realize that the show has been released into the theater, and so we'll continue to move forward within the Atlantean waking dream of long ago, from which we all emerged. For those of us who still care about our personal evolutionary destinies, positive, love-based, joy-filled things can be done in preparation for and following 2012, which will provide the opportunity for us to shift ourselves into a more desirable evolutionary alignment than that of the path of fall, to which the primary quantum of Earth is now engaged through 66% quantum alignment of its planetary encryption lattice and geomagnetic field to the Metatronic code. Earth's current predicament begs a host of questions that the MCEO Guardians can now begin to address. Here's where it gets really interesting. Oh boy. Start with simple questions. Simple question 1. Will Earth's current SAC, stellar activation cycle, ascension cycle, Stargate opening period continue? Like with all that we've heard, is the game still on as far as ascension, or is it just hopeless? The answer to that is yes, it will continue, but with extensive modifications, which will be progressively addressed in coming MCEO teachings. In 2003, Earth's Halls of Amenti Stargate system fell to Metatronic Illuminati control. The MCEO Guardians' efforts to rehabilitate the Amenti gates failed by 2003 end, and thus the encryption lattice of Earth's Amenti Stargates no longer aligns with the organic ascension passages of the living cosmos, but rather aligns with the Metatronic wormhole structures that interface with the fallen parallel Earth, parallel Milky Way black hole system. With the fall of the Amenti Gates in 2003, the MCEO Guardians have progressively activated a very ancient network of transdimensional Earth interface stargates, which include the Ark of the Covenant Hub Gate Network, the Polarian Gate System, and the Navajo Spanner Core Gate System, which together in 2012 will allow for the opening of the Aurora Silver Seed Gates, through which Earth's Templar can retain direct connection to the living cosmos, living cosmic Templar ascension passages, despite the Illuminati's scheduled 2012 opening of the fall-aligned parallel Alpha Omega gates into Earth's captured Halls of Amenti Stargates. So they're planning to open the Alpha Omega wormhole gates into Amenti gates. Okay, through the opening of the Aurora Silver Seed Gates, Earth's Ark of the Covenant, Polarian, and Navajo Spanner Core Gates networks will fully open in 2012, keeping the potentials of genuine eternal life ascension viable on Earth during the current SAC. So that was a simple answer to that question. Next one's not too bad, or is it? That's 1.5 page answer on the next one. Okay, next question was, this is interesting too. There'll be more in summary 1 on this too. Why did Illuminati elders schedule the fulfillment of their master plan prime objective for 2012 AD? Where'd that come out of? They pull it out of a hat? Right? In 22,326 BC, the Illuminati Earth Templar quest ended in a stalemate between Guardian and Illuminati races. Since that time, both groups knew that the Templar conflict drama showdown would occur during the next SAC Stargate cycle, as the Illuminati force required Earth's Halls of Amenti Stargates to be open in order to fulfill their agenda of using inorganic Metatronic wormhole structures to blend the encryption lattice of Earth's Templar with that of the fallen parallel Milky Way galaxy. Earth's next SAC was not due until 4230 AD, but the Metatronic Fallgate artificial wormhole structures of parallel Milky Way and parallel Earth were due to open in our time equivalent of 2012 AD. So the reason they focused here is because that's when their gates were opening in parallel. But ours were out of sync. They're running on about, at this point, I think, about a 25,771 year cycle, I believe, at this point, where ours naturally go on the 26,556 year cycle. This gets into some interesting historical things that have been done on this planet in order to synchronize the gates. In the 13,400 BC and 10,948 BC Earth Atlantean periods, excuse me, the Illuminati force succeeded in orchestrating 2 inorganic accelerations of Earth's wobble, the precession of the equinox cycle, and encryption lattice. These accelerations caused an inorganic time acceleration within portions of Earth's Templar and Halls of Amenti Stargate system, which would cause Earth's Halls of Amenti Stargates to open prematurely in the 2012 to 2013 AD period, for encryption lattice blending with the open fall gates cycle of the parallel Milky Way black hole system. The Earth's Mente gates would open in this time period only if there were a sufficient number of Illuminati human hybrid races on Earth to run the bioelectronic Amente gate codes into Earth's Templar during this parallel gate alignment. The Illuminati parallel gate alignment is called the Alpha-Omega alignment, which occurs between October of 2012 and February of 2013, with peak alignment on December 21st, 2012, which is the winter solstice. If the Illuminati Elder agenda succeeded, Earth's Mente stargates would be prematurely forced open to engage direct encryption lattice and Merkaba field blend with the parallel Earth through opening of the Metatronic wormholes within the black hole center of our Milky Way galaxy, which is what they were trying the beginning of before in 2003 with the dimensional blend experiment that we talked about in the Voyagers books, and we actually headed off at the pass when we went to Andorra and did the grid work there. They were trying to, now when 2012 comes, they're going to have to do that step that they were trying to do then that they didn't succeed in doing. They're going to have to incorporate that then. They were expecting to get to what's called the 55 Metatronic 55 point, which we'll talk about later. They were hoping to do that in 2003, and they would have controlled everything, you know, from that point forward. They didn't make it then, but they're going to make it in 2012 as far as that goes. Now, in preparation for the parallel alignment, we'll refer to it as parallel alignment right now. It gets a bit more detailed as far as alignment with what? Okay, parallel gates, but more. All right. In preparation for the parallel alignment and the Illuminati scheduled Earth-Human 2012 appointment with Illuminati Destiny, the Illuminati Elder races progressively orchestrated the common man mass DNA mutation that we've talked about in the Voyagers books, through which the Illuminati human line, carrying the Amente Stargate codes interbred from the angelic humans, would be ready